King is accused of killing brothers Marion and L. Dominic Rhodes. King is also accused of shooting at Clark that night on October 19th. Clark must serve at least 70% of the 25-year sentence for the first-degree robbery sentence, which is 17 and a half years. 2 men were injured in a collision involving an SUV and a motorcycle in Humboldt on Sunday evening. The incident occurred at 6:04 p.m. on Sunday at the 1700 block of Highway 169 when a 2017 Ford Explorer, driven by 48-year-old David Hassey of Bird, Iowa, rear-ended a 2015 Harley-Davidson motorcycle driven by 66-year-old Ricky Vinsand of Humboldt. The Iowa State Patrol says that Vinsand was stopped northbound on Highway 169 waiting to make a left-hand turn, and Hassey did not see the motorcycle had stopped. Vinsand was injured and transported to Iowa Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, and his condition is unknown. Hassey was also injured but was not taken to the hospital, according to the Iowa State Patrol crash report. Humboldt Police, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, Humboldt Fire Department, and Humboldt EMS assisted on the scene. North and eastbound traffic on Kenyon Road Bridge in Fort Dodge will be reduced to 1 lane tomorrow. Motorists can expect delays and are urged to use an alternate route. Iowa Department of Transportation will be performing a bridge inspection. Charges have been filed in Cerro Gordo County District Court against a former social worker who allegedly gave false testimony in child welfare cases. Radio Iowa's Bob Fisher reports.
The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation says 30-year-old Chelsea Gray of Lawler, a former Social Work 2 case manager with the Iowa Department of Human Services, was arrested on Monday and charged with 3 counts of perjury. Last June, District Associate Judge Adam Sauer found Gray told lies or misrepresentations during a proceeding in which parents were unfairly stripped of the rights to 4 children. Back in October, Cerro Gordo County Attorney Carlisle Dallin says he would refer Gray's case to another agency for investigation. Dallin at the time said he wanted to ensure that the potential criminal matter could be evaluated fairly and independently, since his office uncovered Gray's false statements and brought them to the court's attention. Bob Fisher, Radio Iowa, Mason City.
Iowa DOT officials are asking legislators to help ensure their dwindling stockpile of road salt is properly replenished. Lee Wilkinson is the top administrator for the Iowa DOT.
This was actually our most severe winter that I can recall. We have a winter severity index. On a winter severity standpoint, this has been the highest winter we've had, at least since early 2000s.
Wilkinson says the DOT needs $9 million extra to buy the salt, as the agency fell behind in buying salt last summer.
This winter was sort of a perfect storm, if you will, given the severity of the winter that we faced, plus the fact that we had to actually use a part of our normal salt budget to refill our salt sheds at the beginning of this year because of the previous winter that lasted through the end of April.
The proposal is included in a bill that has cleared the Senate and House committee and is eligible for debate in the full House. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Partial sunshine develops here this afternoon, a high around 60 degrees. Southwest winds at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, a chance for some rain showers here late, cloudy, a low near 40. By Wednesday, a chance for some rain showers, cloudy skies, temperatures hold rather steady. Then by Thursday, another chance for rain showers, cloudy skies, a high around 51. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 60.
To keep your vehicle running at its best, keep up with routine maintenance. The certified service techs at Humboldt Motor Sales make maintaining your vehicle easy. They offer convenient hours and competitive prices on all service and parts. And they take care of your GM warranty needs too. From oil changes to tires, brakes to batteries, engine repair and transmission repair, Humboldt Motor Sales can handle it all. Have your vehicle serviced soon at Humboldt Motor Sales. Log on to HumboldtGM.com to schedule an appointment now or call 800-566-8670.
Get up first thing, smoke a cigarette before lunch, after lunch. Now that I'm talking about it, I kind of feeling like I've lost about 4 hours of every day. I decided I needed to find an alternative. So I started looking and then Juul came up. I did both for a while. Eventually I just switched over and it's very quick.
Mimi made the switch July 2015. Make the switch at JUUL.com. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
I can't wait for Cakes and Prizes.
Cakes and Prizes? Where are you going?
DSOC's annual cake auction. They pair really cool prizes with awesome cakes. It's so fun. Last year I won the bid on concert tickets, and the cake that came with it was so delicious.
Cakes and Prizes? Chances to win? I'll be there.
Don't miss DSOC's 24th annual cake auction, Saturday, April 13th. Doors open at 5 with a silent auction, appetizers, and a live auction starting at 6:30. Bring your friends to DSOC's 24th annual cake auction on the East Campus of Iowa Central, Fort Dodge.
AM 1400. Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
That's right. 60 rounds of freedom, AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. We're here to tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. That's kind of what we're going to try to do here today, especially since the chief of police is in the studio. Roger Porter is here. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
Good. If you have a question or comment for Chief Porter, 515-955-1400. Of course, no questions about ongoing cases or why is my brother in jail or any of those sorts of things. You know, those are things that are in the court system, and well, they're out of the hands of the police department, frankly. So, or the corrections department, whatever the case may be. But if you have a legitimate question about police operation in the city of Fort Dodge, now is your time. 515-955-1400. We are heading into the winter months, or not? that was a slip. It was almost a Florida. I'm looking at the weather forecast. We got nasty weather coming up starting tomorrow afternoon through Thursday, and it's going to be 20 degrees below lower temperatures through the weekend, which is not what I'm looking for. But hopefully this is it. But actually, we're heading into the summer months, and maybe all this rain and snow and things will make for May flowers. Hopefully that's it. Yeah, we will see. But does your department do anything different as the seasons change?
Well, we different events and things are going on that we plan for. We just had a meeting. I was planning for some community programs that we have coming up over the summer that we've been sitting down planning for, and with a national night out at the end of summer, and then try to do, we're sticking to our community picnics and things like that. And that Fight Like a Girl was a big thing last year. So I think we're going to try and do that again this year. And people had a lot of fun with that. And so, it's just like everybody else, they start planning for the outdoor activities and things like that. That's what we plan for too. So, sure.
Yeah. I don't know if there's more rough and tumble in the summer months or not, you would think there would be, because people are able to get outside.
It just varies, in the wintertime, everybody's cooped up in the house, and I spend a lot of time with my family in the house, and how that kind of goes.
Yeah, it gets on your nerves too.
So, certain things are on the uptick during the colder months when everybody's kind of cooped up, and then you get to get out and have a little freedom in the summer months here in Iowa. So that's, kind of spread your wings and have a little fun, and it just kind of varies.
Is there a lot of domestic incidences in Fort Dodge in general? I don't see them in the police log in the paper, but it's been a long time since I went over and actually checked the police log at the county jail.
Yeah, we have, there's domestic incidents, and
every town has them.
And a lot of 99 times out of 100, they're people arguing or something, and then we get called, or sometimes we don't get called. But I don't think it's like a vast majority of them or anything like that, or an uptick in them or anything like that.
Fort Dodge has calmed down in the last 35, 40 years. I used to go over to the police court every morning, Monday through Friday. And back in those days, even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, there's always 8 or 9 people in there still in their bar clothes, some of them with black eyes, and they'd been tussling, or fighting with the police or each other or something,
I think there's a lot more bars back in those days too.
50.
Yeah, so.
When I first got here, when I first moved to Fort Dodge as a young man, there were 51 bars here, I think, we don't have near the bars. Not near there's a lot of reasons for that, mainly the drunk driving laws. Yeah. And that's a good thing. And I hear from the bar owners that the no smoking law has the Iowa Smoke Free Air Act hurt their business as well. So
I'm sure
and of course we've had some economic setbacks. People probably don't have the money to sit in a bar and socialize like they once did. I don't know. Probably a combination of factors, I'm sure.
And I think a lot of people do a lot of different, stay at home, hang out, and do things like that nowadays too. I don't know, but a lot has changed. So,
and maybe, there's a lot more awareness of alcohol abuse. And that's also a good thing.
Well, I think they teach that, I'm sure they did when I was in school, but I think it's a lot more prevalent now. And then, and when you're coming up in age and stuff, that you get kind of taught about things like that, alcohol, drug abuse, and things like that.
That's real good. I think that's an outstanding change
in the educational system. I know my son was in DARE.
Yeah.
They don't have DARE anymore, but he enjoyed it. A drug abuse awareness. I forget exactly what the acronym was now.
Yeah.
Drug abuse, or the R. I don't know what it was. But anyway, he enjoyed it, and the police officers would go over to the, well, it was a middle school at the time, and they'd talk to very young children about drugs.
Yeah. Yeah, right. We don't have the DARE program any longer, but we do have school resource officers that are in the school, and they are, they go in and they talk to kids. They give some little programs and things about kind of the same topics as DARE. It's just not as it's not structured like DARE was. But
right.
We still get the officers in the schools and talk to them and expand on that a little bit by talking to the parents. The parents need to be educated just as much. I mean, I need to be educated on a lot of things, especially with the technology stuff today. I don't know any of that. Where the kids
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. So, I mean, the kids get taught about that and the dangers of some of the technology that's out there right now. But you got to educate the parents too, because I'm one of those parents and I don't know near as much. I know 2% of what my cell phone could probably do, where my youngest daughter probably knows a lot more than I do about it. And
probably does.
Trying to stay on top of that and making sure that they're safe. So, I mean, that's some educational aspects that we look at too. So
I have grandchildren. They're little. They all have Kindles. Well, maybe the youngest one doesn't, but the 7-year-old and the 6-year-old do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm not lying when I say I need you to fix this and they fix it for me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
no, my son and daughter-in-law sat down with me a time or two and said, "Here, do this."
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, old fella.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's I from what I understand, I don't know this, but there's threats going back and forth online and young people's Facebook pages, and
there's a lot of dangers out there that you have to look out for. And luckily we have some people within the department that are trained in looking at that we, they routinely go out and give talks in different groups, whether it's in the schools or civic groups or anything like that we can pass that information on. And we try to post stuff on social media about some of the dangers, and the scams, those are big technology based things, so I mean, we try to get information out on that as much as we can too. So we don't have DARE.
That happens every now and then, doesn't it? There was that here in town. There was that credit card scam. If you put your credit card into a gas pump, doing the self-serve thing.
That's pretty rampant. Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot. The technology that they have now. I mean, you won't even notice it from the outside. Sometimes if they're able to get into the machine and hook up a scamming device on the inside of the machine, they can read your card over Bluetooth. They don't even have to be there when it happens.
Right.
So it's stuff you got to look out for. Like every time I go to a gas pump, I look to make sure the seals on the outside, it's not broken, because if it's broken, I wouldn't use it. It's a kind of a telltale sign that somebody's been in there, and they have to seal those up. They have to put that sticker across the door.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go to an ATM, I reach out and I grab a hold of the card reader and give it a yank, because a lot of times they'll slip something over top that reads your card, and it's usually stuck there with glue or something or tape or whatever, and if you can pull it off, I wouldn't use it, and report it to the bank, and then they'll report it to the police, and we'll deal with it from there. But there's a lot of technology out there that can get your money.
It's amazing what people will do to earn a dishonest dollar.
Yeah. And you can't, you're no dummy when you're out there doing those types of things. I mean, they have to have some knowledge. They could be able to use that smarts somewhere else. But
I'm of the generation that pulled up to the pump, filled it, and usually the attendant used to take your money at the car window, but that doesn't happen anymore. But I'm perfectly okay going into the station, whatever it may be, and paying inside.
Yeah.
I'm all right doing that. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest is Chief of Police Roger Porter. So, there's always a lot of events in the summertime.
Yeah. We are planning for those. Like I said, our community or our school resource officers, they double as our community resource officers. So in the summertime, when there's no school in session, they go out and set those things up. They do a lot of talks and do a lot of education, as well as, when they're not doing that, they're supplementing our staff on the street and stuff like that. So
do the Fort Dodge Police help with celebration? It's actually outside the city limits, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's our venue. We we provide the security out there on the grounds, and then the state patrol helps us out, and the county helps us out with traffic and things like that. And actually, it's kind of all hands on deck. You have county and PD officers out there working the event.
It's amazing. Some of those events get, pretty big. There's a lot of people there. It's amazing, and I'm grateful that there hasn't really seemed, to my knowledge, been a lot of incidents out there, like theft or guys getting drunk and beating each other up or anything like that.
I think everybody just goes out there to have a good time, and that's pretty much what they do,
Well, they've gotten Jim Reed and his very capable group have gotten older artists for the most part, the people who grew up with some of those artists, and that's Sammy Hagar. He was around in the 80s and even the 70s before that, but you're getting a few years if you grew up with Sammy Hagar too.
I don't like you saying the older stuff because that's who I listen to.
I know, but and I listened to Huey Lewis and the News in the mid 80s, and they put on a great show a few years ago. And it was the Steve Miller Band. I liked them, and it was very pleasant to be out there in those times. And,
except for when it was storming last year,
that sucked. I kind of was a ZZ Top fan starting in the 1970s into the 80s. And it didn't turn out well with the weather. Just was. But
even the short ones that they had sounded like everybody still had a pretty good time out there, from what I understand.
I always had a good time. I look forward to having a good time this year. How about the Downtown Country Jam? Now that's definitely in city limits. I mean, do you round up some extra help from the county? And
we take we provide basically when they sign up for these permits, they request law enforcement assistance, and we sit down and we work with each group on events like that, and to kind of determine how many officers we're going to need, and if it's more than what we're able to handle, then we reach out, and the county will come in and set up and help us out with that type of stuff, and we go from there. But that's also been an event that pretty uneventful as far as any issues or anything going on. I think again, people just want to go down and have a good time and go home. Nobody wants to.
There again, Jim Reed saw something that I didn't. He saw the possibility downtown. And I was thinking, no, downtown. How many people can get downtown?
You and I both.
But by golly, he pulled it off, and a lot of people came, and it was a really good time. And I think this will be the third one coming up, and I went to the first two, and they were very good, very. I enjoyed myself. Yeah. Saw a lot of people. Everybody was in the party, good mood. Hey, here we are, and it was terrific.
That's
it was
good.
terrific.
Yeah.
It is. I wasn't looking for police officers, but I never saw them. But I suppose they were there.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Do you have plainclothes policemen at those events? Or?
Most of them are uniformed.
Uniformed people.
Yeah.
Do you? I've asked you this before and I forgot already. Do you have like police reserves? You don't, do you?
We do have.
You do have.
It's a combination. The reserve unit is they work with the PD and the SO. Started off years ago with just the sheriff's department, and then I think it was in 2012. We kind of formed a group that they work for both the SO and the PD. So when they're working in the sheriff's capacity, they'll be wearing the sheriff's uniform, and when they're working with the PD, they will be wearing the PD uniform.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So they're a good group of people, and they help out quite a bit. So
years ago, when I was in the Sertoma Club, we brought professional wrestling to the Fort Dodge Senior High Gym. We had to get a hold of it. We had the reserves there, both county and in city at the time.
I remember my dad taking me to WWF or whatever it was that they had it. I think it was at the at the YMCA one time.
One time it was at the YMCA. The one I was thinking of particularly, we had it out at senior high school in the gym.
I was little and I was scared.
Is that right?
Yeah, it scared me.
My wife's grandpa loved to watch wrestling on TV. He lived up on a farm by Havelock, Iowa, which is north of Pocahontas. And he was so excited when he heard that it was coming to Fort Dodge. All his favorite stars were coming to wrestle at the YMCA in Fort Dodge. And he got tickets, and he got really good tickets, like right down in front. And he watched the match, and he knew it was fake, and they were missing their punches and all this. And he was so disappointed he never watched again, which is really too bad. He probably shouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
He probably,
they can cover that stuff up on the TV. It's kind of hard when you're sitting right down there watching it.
I'll tell you though, I've been ring announcer for those things a few times, and the wrestlers are Vern Gagne's group out of Minnesota, Larry Zbyszko and Baron von Raschke and some of the big wrestlers of the 1980s, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who's deceased now. But those guys are tough guys.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's a pretty advanced tumbling act, and it's sports entertainment, as Vince McMahon says, I wouldn't give any of them any grief. And when they throw each other off the ropes or a body slam, I mean, they try to do their best, but you're still going to hit the ground.
A lot of accidents can happen in that.
Yes, they can. So I never, unlike some fools, I never got too many beers and walked up to them and told them it was fake.
No, they're too big for me.
Too big for me, too. All right. Chief Roger Porter's been our guest. Are we missing anything, Roger?
I don't think so, Mike.
All right. Thanks for coming.
Right,
Chief Roger Porter has been our guest. The Fort Dodge Police Department is 226, and this is KVFD Fort Dodge.
Getting the most out of your micronutrients. Hello, I'm Megan Grebner, and this is Managing for Profit on Brownfield, a content partnership with Verdesian Life Sciences. Micronutrients might only be needed in small quantities, but they play a big role in crop growth and development. In this Managing for Profit, Todd Carpenter with Verdesian says growers can improve yields by making sure micronutrients are applied at the right rate and at the right time. We'll find out more in Brownfield right after this.
GTG, BRB, OMW, be there in a few. You may think that these kinds of texts are fine because of their length, and you can easily send them at a stoplight. But no, answering one text can take your attention away from the road for 5 seconds. And traveling at 55 miles an hour, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Make good decisions, don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
The importance of micronutrients can often be overlooked, but copper, zinc, manganese, and boron play vital roles in crop growth and development. Todd Carpenter with Verdesian Life Sciences says just because they're needed in small quantities doesn't undermine their importance.
Boron is involved in cell elongation and involved in cell walls. Zinc and copper are involved in various enzymatic processes. Manganese is involved in photosynthesis. Paying attention to having the proper amount and ratio of available micronutrients for the plants is critical.
He tells Brownfield Verdesian has launched MicroSync granular micronutrients for row crops.
They leverage a combination of technologies and micronutrient sources that really helps to improve availability. We've leveraged the NutriPaction technology, and that technology in and of itself allows us to take very fine powdered micronutrient sources and compress them into a granule that is readily soluble, that also can be built to the same size and density of the other granules that it's going into the blend, into fertilizer blends with, so that we don't have any problem with the granule segregating out. It also spreads efficiently, and then it also, upon wetting, comes apart readily to be able to disperse into the soil to provide nutrients. We've also used our Verdesian polymer technologies with MicroSync. And our Verdesian polymer technology is a product there that enhances nutrient availability and nutrient uptake, and it keeps nutrients available season long.
By having the correct rate use and timing, Carpenter says farmers can maximize yields and improve their return on investment.
The strong micronutrient fertility program ensures that there's no holes in that fertility program. It gives us the best opportunity to maximize the yield potential of that plant. For soybeans, manganese is a huge component to maximizing photosynthetic efficiency of that plant. Zinc is of huge importance to corn in terms of grain quality and grain fill and maximizing test weight.
I'm Megan Grebner with Managing for Profit on Brownfield, a content partnership with Verdesian Life Sciences.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. A Fort Dodge man found guilty of robbing the Fort Dodge Applebee's last fall was sentenced to 25 years in prison on Monday, but he says he's innocent. 29-year-old Cledio Clark of Fort Dodge was convicted in February of first-degree robbery of the Fort Dodge Applebee's at 2810 Fifth Avenue South in the early mornings of September 30th, 2018. Clark claimed his innocence on Monday, saying that investigators forced people to say false things about him and that he was charged because he was not cooperating with investigators in a double homicide murder case from last fall. In that case, Tanner King is accused of killing brothers Marion and L. Dominic Rhodes. King is also accused of shooting at Clark that night on October 19th. Clark must serve at least 70% of the 25-year sentence for the first-degree robbery sentence, which is 17 and a half years. 2 men were injured in a collision involving an SUV and a motorcycle in Humboldt on Sunday evening. The incident occurred at 6:04 p.m. on Sunday at the 1700 block of Highway 169 when a 2017 Ford Explorer, driven by 48-year-old David Hassey of Bird, Iowa, rear-ended a 2015 Harley-Davidson motorcycle driven by 66-year-old Ricky Vinsand of Humboldt. The Iowa State Patrol says that Vinsand was stopped northbound on Highway 169 waiting to make a left-hand turn, and Hassey did not see the motorcycle had stopped. Vinsand was injured and transported to Iowa Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, and his condition is unknown. Hassey was also injured but was not taken to the hospital, according to the Iowa State Patrol crash report. Humboldt Police, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, Humboldt Fire Department, and Humboldt EMS assisted on the scene. North and eastbound traffic on Kenyon Road Bridge in Fort Dodge will be reduced to 1 lane tomorrow. Motorists can expect delays and are urged to use an alternate route. Iowa Department of Transportation will be performing a bridge inspection. Charges have been filed in Cerro Gordo County District Court against a former social worker who allegedly gave false testimony in child welfare cases. Radio Iowa's Bob Fisher reports.
The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation says 30-year-old Chelsea Gray of Lawler, a former Social Work 2 case manager with the Iowa Department of Human Services, was arrested on Monday and charged with 3 counts of perjury. Last June, District Associate Judge Adam Sauer found Gray told lies or misrepresentations during a proceeding in which parents were unfairly stripped of the rights to 4 children. Back in October, Cerro Gordo County Attorney Carlisle Dallin says he would refer Gray's case to another agency for investigation. Dallin at the time said he wanted to ensure that the potential criminal matter could be evaluated fairly and independently, since his office uncovered Gray's false statements and brought them to the court's attention. Bob Fisher, Radio Iowa, Mason City.
Iowa DOT officials are asking legislators to help ensure their dwindling stockpile of road salt is properly replenished. Lee Wilkinson is the top administrator for the Iowa DOT.
This was actually our most severe winter that I can recall. We have a winter severity index. On a winter severity standpoint, this has been the highest winter we've had, at least since early 2000s.
Wilkinson says the DOT needs $9 million extra to buy the salt, as the agency fell behind in buying salt last summer.
This winter was sort of a perfect storm, if you will, given the severity of the winter that we faced, plus the fact that we had to actually use a part of our normal salt budget to refill our salt sheds at the beginning of this year because of the previous winter that lasted through the end of April.
The proposal is included in a bill that has cleared the Senate and House committee and is eligible for debate in the full House. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 2:34, 26 minutes. Before 3 o'clock, we'll have Sam Clovis as our guest in the next segment. Scattered showers off and on later today, mostly cloudy with a high of 61. We're at 60 right now. Overnight, a little rain, low around 40, going to be windy. Tomorrow, showers are likely. Cloudy with a high of 42, pretty windy once again, gusting up to 35 miles per hour. On Thursday, rain, thunderstorm, all that sort of thing. Very windy with a high of 50. Probably get a wind chill factor temperature in there. On Friday, snow, then a chance of rain and snow between 10 and noon. Then rain afternoon. It'll be only 38, 39 for a high and very windy on Friday. On Saturday, sunny with a high only of 47. That's a good 20 degrees below normal for this time of year. And on Sunday, mostly sunny with a high of 52. Monday, chance of rain. Partly sunny with a high of 60. Going to be windy, of course. That wind just blows anymore. We cut down all the trees, knocked down all the old farm places, and the wind just blows. Right now, it's a little cloudy, 60 degrees at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Jeff Zinnel has passed away. Mr. Jeff Zinnel has died. His service was this morning at 10 o'clock with Gunderson Funeral Home handling the arrangements. Michael Scott of Fort Dodge has died. Michael K. Scott, 63 years old, died on Sunday at Mercy Medical Center. There will be a funeral service for Michael Scott later this week. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 2:36. It's overcast, 60 degrees. With a look at the closing market report, here's Jesse.
Here's a look at how the markets closed on Tuesday. I'm Jesse Stewart reporting. USDA expecting larger corn stocks while they trimmed the soybean stocks on Tuesday in the April round of USDA reports. Final numbers, soybeans for May unchanged at $8.98 3/4. July beans unchanged at $9.11 3/4. November beans down a half penny at $9.31 3/4 on Tuesday. May bean meal down 10 cents a ton at $3.0910. May bean oil 16 points higher at $29.04. May corn and July corn both unchanged, with May at $3.60, July quart at $3.68 1/2, December quart up a quarter penny at $3.89 1/4. May Chicago wheat down 5 3/4 at $4.59 1/2. May Kansas City winter wheat down 4 at $4.27 1/2. May Minneapolis spring wheat down 1 at $5.23. Meantime, feeder cattle trade April down 57 at $146.15. May down 40 at $150.17, and August down 10 at $157.60. Live cattle for April up 10 at $125.90. June down 22 at $120.35. August down 7 at $117.65. Hog trade April down 7 at $78.52. The rest limit lower. May at $86.45. June at $95.15. And July hogs at $97.97. That's closing markets. I'm Jesse Stewart reporting.
We stand for people, progress and pride. Iowa Farm Bureau's by your side.
We're the Iowa Farm Bureau, and we believe in Iowa's future. We support Iowa's youth, encourage ag innovations, and nurture new business opportunities in rural communities. We're a century strong and growing. To learn more, contact your local county farm bureau.
When it comes to my weed control, I know a head start can go a long way. That's why I spray early, so I can keep control all season long with a Roundup Ready Extend crop system, the system that makes the difference. This is my field.
Choose the Roundup Ready Extend crop system for control of more weeds than any other soybean system. Featuring XtendiMax herbicide with Vapor Grip technology to manage tough-to-control weeds, including up to 14 days of soil activity, along with the field-proven performance of Roundup Ready to Extend soybeans. Now you have the right tools to extend your weed control and extend your yield with the system that makes the difference. Learn how you can put the system to work in your field when you visit RoundupReadyExtend.com. XtendiMax is a restricted-use pesticide. Performance may vary. Always read and follow grain marketing and all other stewardship practices and pesticide label directions. Check local regulations for specific requirements in your state.
Flood victims in Nebraska need our help. Alpha Media Fort Dodge is a designated donation site for the thousands of displaced people in Nebraska. Items needed are cleaning supplies, toiletries, diapers and baby wipes, new pillows and blankets, heavy-duty trash bags, snacks, bottled water, pet food, hygiene items, and of course, cash. If you can help our neighbors in Nebraska, please drop off your donations at our studios, 200 North 10th Street. All items will be delivered to Nebraska on Friday, April 26th. Special shout out to Chemna Auto at Fort Dodge for all the help. Thank you from all of us at Alpha Media.
Winter's grip is finally giving way to the arrival of spring, and that can only mean one thing for growers everywhere. It's go time. For your critical last-minute seed decisions, Nutrien Ag Solutions is your ag retailer of the future. The most knowledgeable and trusted growing partner with the best hybrids and varieties available to ensure maximum performance from planting through harvest. Contact your local Nutrien Ag Solutions crop consultant now while hybrids and varieties are available, or visit futureof.ag/seeds to learn more today.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, and of course, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we're never going to be boring. On the air with me now is our old friend Sam Clovis. A lot of you folks remember Sam Clovis when he was on the air regularly with me, and we hope to have him on regularly in the future. So, Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fantastic, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, not a problem at all. My pleasure. Sam Clovis, originally from Kansas. He went to the Air Force Academy. He received his MBA from Golden Gate University. He has also served as Donald Trump's campaign co-chair in the 2016 presidential election. He was also briefly with the United States Department of Agriculture. How'd that turn out for you there, Sam? There was some kind of tussle there.
Well, it worked out really well. I was brought in during the transition. I was a policy director for the transition between administrations, and at the very 11th hour, I was asked to lead the team in over at the USDA. We had 43 political appointees that went in the very first day on inauguration day, and to help take over the department. And I really enjoyed it. It was a fabulous experience. We were there. We held the fort down until we could get Secretary Perdue confirmed, and then I was retained. He nominated me to be the Undersecretary for Research, Education, and Economics, and that all hit about the time that the Mueller investigation ramped up and hit their hot point there, and so I got into that embroilment there with the Mueller investigation, and subsequently had to pull my nomination. But I stayed on for another 6 months, serving as the senior White House advisor to the Department of Agriculture, which was, it's a fabulous job and it's a great job. I enjoyed it very much. The issue for me, Mike, was that I had been on the road for about 5 years. I'd run for the United States Senate in Iowa, and then had a brief hiatus back at the college where I was teaching, and then got picked up in the presidential cycle of 2016, and subsequently went on and did that for the next 3 years or so. And so it was really, it was a long time away from home, and I needed to come home. So that's why I came back in May of 2018. And here we are about a year later now. It's hard to believe it's been a year since I've been in DC, but that's how I ended up back here. And I have run a kind of a boutique consulting practice, and I have some select clients that are very generous, and I take good care of them. So that's kind of where I am.
Sam, there was some you taught business and management at Morningside College, and there was some sort of dispute at the time you were nominated to go to the Department of Agriculture that you didn't have an agriculture background. I thought if you were versed in public policy and business and management, you could serve as a bureaucrat. I didn't know that you needed this necessarily. It would be a good thing to have an agricultural background, but it wasn't a requirement. Can you tell us anything about that?
Well, really, that was not where I made my bones, if you want to go there, because whether you've been a farmer all your life or not, I don't think really matters as much, because you're asked to manage and lead an organization, and that the process is based on sound business practices, and the fact that I have an economics background and was well versed in public policy really is what was the strength of that. Plus the fact I knew the mind of the president, because I was the person who had final approval authority of all of the plans for all of the departments for the first 200 days of the administration, and so I knew where everything was, and I knew what was supposed to be going on. So where I went really didn't matter. It was because my job was to go in and run the organization, and whether I knew exactly what time of the year to plant corn wasn't nearly as important as the fact that I understood the budgeting process, and I understood the philosophy of the president. I understood what we were trying to accomplish, and the fact that I knew public policy well enough to know when a bureaucrat was trying to blow something by us. And so I, in my own mind, and certainly I think the record indicates, I was extremely effective, and I could have gone into any department and accomplished the same thing. They needed me at agriculture, and that's where that really was the point, was they needed a senior guy to go into to lead the team into agriculture, because it was the biggest team of all of the beachhead teams, is what we call them. and it was the one that needed the most diversity, and that's where I came in because of my broad, diverse background in public policy, and that's where I was the most effective, and it certainly worked out.
Well, you really can't claim to be diverse, Sam. You have a problem. I have it too. You're a white guy, an older white man, as a matter of fact. And this is, if there was ever a disqualifier on your resume, it is this: you're a Catholic. Now that should disqualify you from practically everything.
Well, plus education. I have way too much education.
To education, yeah, that's right. You've been educated in a traditional way, and with emphasis outside yourself rather than the constant inner turmoil and real or imagined hurts and all these sorts of things. It's just outrageous. You know, you were an admirer of Congressman Steve King. Perhaps you still are.
Yep.
Our friend Steve King is in a little bit of trouble.
Right.
It's a lot of it is self-inflicted with him, but I do appreciate his directness. He explains himself not in a hostile or derogatory way at all. He has always struck me as a friendly man who deeply believes in a set of principles. To me, he's always been a German Catholic man from a little town in western Iowa, and I understand that. And a lot of people here do. But the times have changed. We have people like that Scholten guy, that J.D. Scholten guy, who was running on the Democratic Party ticket against Steve King, who mentioned that he was struggling with whiteness. I heard that and I didn't know what to do with it, Sam. But struggling with whiteness, Sam. This is who would lead us. But anyway, as far as Steve King's problems, Randy Feenstra, you probably know Randy. Randy's a good guy and he's a rock solid conservative. Do you think Randy will beat him?
I don't know. I think I'll hedge a little bit on this. Because what I am a supporter, I'm a close friend of Steve King's, and I'm not going to abandon my friend simply because he's got himself in a little bit of hot water. Because I think he has been very effective in representing the 4th District and in Congress. He's got some committee issues right now, but that too will pass, I think, over time if he is lucky enough. And I say that word advisedly, because I think he's going to have probably the biggest challenge of his political life will be this cycle, because he's running against Randy Feenstra, who has raised $260,000 in the first quarter of the year. Jeremy Taylor, who's a bright young star over here in the western part of the state, the Sioux City kid, and whose star is rising. Very conservative, great pedigree, a military veteran, a lot of big things going for him, just young. And I think that those two people pose a considerable challenge for Steve. And I think the biggest reason is that Steve is having difficulty raising money. And I think that whether we like to admit it or not, money is the mother's milk of politics, and I know better than anybody about that. And so I think that the great challenge that Steve has is to continue to do the reclamation tour here in the 4th District. And again, apparently that's been going very well. But the other part of it is to have enough money to be credible down the stretch in the primary race, because the primary is still over a year away. It's not until June of 2020. A lot of things can happen in that year. And I think Steve has to make some decisions about, how he's going to approach his race, whether or not he stays in the race, I think is still up in the air. And, he could retire and step away gracefully and do that. I don't know that that's in his mind. I don't think that's what he will do. But he certainly could do that.
You know him better than I do, but that just doesn't, to step away from a fight just does not seem in his nature.
No, it isn't. I mean, that's almost anathema to him. I think that it's just And I agree with you, Mike. I just don't think, and as long as Steve wants to stay in the fight, he's going to have guys like me there with him. So, because I'm not going to abandon Steve King, because I look at what he's done and the good has far outweighed anything else that may be negative about him. And I just think he's, and the other part of it is he is a good friend. He's a dear friend, and I'm not going to abandon my friend. I'm just not going to do it.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest is Sam Clovis. You're a political consultant at times, Sam. What would your advice be to Congressman King?
I think that what he's doing right now is the town hall circuit. He's doing all 39 counties in the district. I would encourage him to continue to do that. I would be working the activist base, the county chair base, that crowd very hard, because I think when it comes down to it, it's votes that are going to matter in the primary. Now, the other candidates may be able to advertise more because they have more money. But I think Steve, to win 25% of the vote on primary day, just being able to fog the mirror, I think that his ramp to get to 35% and above is much shallower than the other candidates. The other candidates are not as well known. They don't have the name recognition. And I think at the end of the day, primary voters are the people who are your activists. I think the big challenge then will be for Steve, if he's able to win the primary, then he will be in a very tough fight to win the district, because I think the Democrats will look at him as being vulnerable, and they will throw everything at him, including the kitchen sink. And so I think that his struggles are a long ways from being over. But I think he still has an inside track.
Well, the Democrats have a visceral hatred for Steve King. It's almost personal. I don't really get making it so personal with the Democrats, but I think it's because he constantly pokes at one of the pillars of their belief system, and that's diversity and multiculturalism. I frankly don't believe there's such a thing as successful multiculturalism at all. If you have a multicultural society and you want to keep them all in line, there's only one way to do that, and that's with a strong, very strong central. That's right. And like China, for example, I've often said on the air, if the left has its way, look to China for what our future is going to be. They do reward some of their talented citizens, but I'll tell you, they brook no dissent, not even in the way that the Chinese citizens think or talk. They brook no dissent in China, and that's exactly what Democrats in the year 2019 are like. And I want to point out an article or an opinion piece written by Peggy Noonan, who's a sharp writer and a very smart person. She wrote this in the Wall Street Journal. She wrote it as really an open letter to Joe Biden. And it starts out, "Don't do it, Joe. Don't run for president. It won't work. You won't get the nomination. Your loss will cause you pain, and not only for you. And your defeat will be worse than sudden. Your defeat will be worse than sudden. It will be poignant. Right now, operatives of the other candidates are trying to scare you out of jumping in. We all know that what you intended as warmth is now received as a boundary violation. You addressed this in a video that was crisp and friendly. You never meant to cause discomfort. You intend to change your ways, but it's not going away. It will linger with more to come. They will tear you apart." Now, this is Joe Biden, ladies and gentlemen, the author, sponsor, and protector of the Violence Against Women Act that changed the lives of women in this country. And he is unfit to lead the Democratic Party, according to the Democratic Party. How did Biden ever get here? How did we get here, more importantly? How did a bunch of screaming, nasty, bitter people seize the day for the Democratic Party?
Well, if you're asking, a lot of it, this is a long time coming. This has been over 120 years in the making. And I think that this is no accident that we've arrived at this point, because I think that the evolution of the progressive movement in this country has been certainly on track. And I think if you look at the Fabian movement from Great Britain that was transported over to New York City, and then from there has been permeating our political and educational institutions for the last 100 years, I think it becomes very easy to understand how it is where we are today. I think mass media has allowed the much more rapid expansion of these things. I think that we see with the advent of technology, electronic technology today, social media and other things, we've seen a massive propaganda onslaught, and I think that our children have been, for the most part, overtaken by this, and so it's not hard to understand why we are where we are today, because there are people who are aggrieved, and the whole base mentality of the Democrat Party today is that you must have victims, you must have villains, and then you must have vindictiveness to assault those villains. And that's why you get to that radical egalitarianism and all these other factors that then lend themselves to the media reinforcing these notions, because everyone's a victim. And if there are victims, then there must be villains. And if there are villains, then they must be punished. And so that is the base mentality of the Democrat Party, the progressive movement in this country.
It seems it's such a simple-minded equation, and I'm sure most of the Democrats know what's happening, but they follow like sheep. They really do. They follow along. By the way, I will take issue with what you said about everybody's a victim. I remember what one of my friends who has since moved away to another state, he was a bank loan officer, and we were in casual conversation one day, and he told me that the bank was going to be closed for a couple of days because the government auditors were coming, and I just assumed that he meant that the bank was having some sort of financial audit. That's not what they were looking for. He went on to tell me that they were looking for equality in their loaning practices.
Right.
And I said, and he said the government has an interest in making sure that we're not discriminating against minorities. And I said, well, who's a minority? And he said, basically anybody who's not a white male between the ages of 18 and 55.
Yep.
There you go.
Well, that's all part of the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. And that's what led us to the financial crisis of 2008 was one of the, because of the, you go out there and you make these loans to people that may or may not be able to pay them back. And so you that's why you end up with these bundled or derivatives that we have out here, where you have bundled mortgages that have toxic assets in them. And so all of this stuff is all part and parcel of those things. And just think about that point, Mike. That's a 40-year-old law that is still being visited on our banks, and particularly our community banks today. And it is still, you take a state like Iowa, it only is essentially 95% white Caucasian. I mean, it's just 95% white. And so imagine the banks have to go still spend the same money on compliance that a bank in Harlem might have to pay, or pay the same on a bank that may be in Miami or Fort Worth or some other place. And so the costs imposed by these types of laws, when banks have the ability to make those decisions to make sure to mitigate their own risk. And so, and I hate to drill down on that particular point, but that is an example of exactly what I'm talking about.
Sam Clovis is our guest, and we're going to go to the news here for about 7 minutes, and then we're going to come back with Sam. Sam, hang on, William. We'll be right back. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
This is Gary Rima, the voice of the UNI Panthers, and you can listen to exciting Panther sports right here on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
Capitol Hill.
Attorney General William Barr's appearance at a House Appropriations Subcommittee was scheduled to be about his budget request, but it was hard to avoid, as one Democrat called it, the elephant in the room.
Let me tell you what I'm getting at, that I find quite extraordinary.
A New York Democrat, Nita Lowey, pressed Barr and how he was able to so quickly issue Special Counsel Robert Mueller's conclusions. Barr says his office was updated throughout the investigation.
In that context, there had been discussions. So there was some inkling as to some of the thinking of the special counsel.
Barr now expects to make a redacted version of the Mueller report public within a week. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The U.S. Border Patrol just announcing a new monthly record. More than 90,000 people apprehended at the southern border in March, driven mainly by a surge in families leaving Central America.
We're being very strong on the border, but we're bucking a court system that never, ever rules for us. And we're bucking really bad things with Congress, with the Democrats in Congress not willing to act.
Democrats criticize his immigration policies, including a national emergency declaration. Meantime, the president denies reports that he's considering a return to the zero tolerance policy blamed for previous family separations at the border. And he says he's not cleaning house after a shakeup in the Homeland Security Department. A day after more than a dozen parents agreed to plead guilty in the college admissions cheating scandal, there are new charges against other parents, including actress Lori Loughlin. She and her husband now facing a money laundering conspiracy count in addition to the original fraud charges. A sell-off on Wall Street, the Dow down 189 points at the closing bell, in part over renewed concern about a global slowdown. The S&P snapping an 8-day winning streak. This is Fox News.
There's nothing small about your business. Your passion, your hours, your reputation, it's all huge. Your partnerships, even bigger. With Dell Small Business Technology Advisors, you'll get the tech, advice, and one-on-one partnership to help your business grow. Because with reliable Dell PCs with Intel Core processors, you can focus on what matters most, getting business done. Call 877-BUY-DELL to speak with an advisor today. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
Ah, the bull elk's bugle, one of nature's most wondrous sounds. That is not a bull elk, that's Kim. Her RV sewage tank is spewing all over her camper. Way, way out in the middle of elk country. Yep, there's an elk. And that's Kim. It's wild out there. When it gets too wild, Progressive has your RV covered. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
From the new federal ban on bump stocks, which can make guns fire more rapidly, as a Texas company tries to send the federal government a bill by suing.
Fort Worth company RW Arms says it has destroyed more than 73,000 bump stocks. However, the company, which billed itself on its website as a leading retailer of the attachments, says it has lost more than $20 million in revenue. Company officials say they're suing for fair market value compensation. The federal ban was imposed by the Trump administration following the 2017 shooting at an outdoor concert in Las Vegas, where 58 people were killed. The ban took effect last month, saying any sale or ownership of bump stocks could mean 10 years in prison and at least $250,000 in fines. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
The acting U.S. defense chief says our nation has lost a legend in a tweet just announcing the death of the last of the so-called Doolittle Raiders, who launched the first U.S. attack on Japan's home islands during World War II after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Lieutenant Colonel Dick Cole was 103. The U.S. top Air Force officer also tweeting, offering eternal thanks and condolences to Cole's family. Businesses are joining forces with Uber as the ride-hailing service launches a voucher program, letting companies like the Westfield Group of malls and restaurant chain TGI Fridays offer free or discounted rides to customers.
It's a way for retailers to combat declining foot traffic as a result of the growth of online shopping. Restaurants that deliver food through Uber Eats are also participating. According to Uber, today's customers want convenience, and offering vouchers enable brands to offer consumers more choices and a better customer experience.
Fox's Hillary Barsky. Too close to call on Election Day in Israel. Both Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his main challenger, former military chief Benny Gantz, claiming victory for their parties. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. A Fort Dodge man found guilty of robbing the Fort Dodge Applebee's last fall was sentenced to 25 years in prison on Monday, but he says he's innocent. 29-year-old Cleo Clark of Fort Dodge was convicted in February of first-degree robbery of the Fort Dodge Applebee's at 2810 Fifth Avenue South in the early mornings of September 30th, 2018. Clark claimed his innocence on Monday, saying that investigators forced people to say false things about him and that he was charged because he was not cooperating with investigators in a double homicide murder case from last fall. In that case, Tanner King is accused of killing brothers Marion and L. Dominic Rhodes. King is also accused of shooting at Clark that night on October 19th. Clark must serve at least 70% of the 25-year sentence for the first-degree robbery sentence, which is 17 and a half years. 2 men were injured in a collision involving an SUV and a motorcycle in Humboldt on Sunday evening. The incident occurred at 6:04 p.m. on Sunday at the 1700 block of Highway 169 when a 2017 Ford Explorer, driven by 48-year-old David Hassey of Bird, Iowa, rear-ended a 2015 Harley-Davidson motorcycle driven by 66-year-old Ricky Vinsand of Humboldt. The Iowa State Patrol says that Vinsand was stopped northbound on Highway 169 waiting to make a left-hand turn, and Hassey did not see the motorcycle had stopped. Vinsand was injured and transported to Iowa Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, and his condition is unknown. Hassey was also injured but was not taken to the hospital, according to the Iowa State Patrol crash report. Humboldt Police, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, Humboldt Fire Department, and Humboldt EMS assisted on the scene. North and eastbound traffic on Kenyon Road Bridge in Fort Dodge will be reduced to 1 lane tomorrow. Motorists can expect delays and are urged to use an alternate route. Iowa Department of Transportation will be performing a bridge inspection. Charges have been filed in Cerro Gordo County District Court against a former social worker who allegedly gave false testimony in child welfare cases. Radio Iowa's Bob Fisher reports.
The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation says 30-year-old Chelsea Gray of Lawler, a former social work 2 case manager with the Iowa Department of Human Services, was arrested on Monday and charged with 3 counts of perjury. Last June, District Associate Judge Adam Sauer found Gray told lies or misrepresentations during a proceeding in which parents were unfairly stripped of the rights to 4 children. Back in October, Cerro Gordo County Attorney Carlisle Dallin says he would refer Gray's case to another agency for investigation. Dallin at the time said he wanted to ensure that the potential criminal matter could be evaluated fairly and independently, since his office uncovered Gray's false statements and brought them to the court's attention. Bob Fisher, Radio Iowa, Mason City.
Iowa DOT officials are asking legislators to help ensure their dwindling stockpile of road salt is properly replenished. Lee Wilkinson is the top administrator for the Iowa DOT.
This was actually our most severe winter that I can recall. We have a winter severity index. On a winter severity standpoint, this has been the highest winter we've had, at least since early 2000s.
Wilkinson says the DOT needs $9 million extra to buy the salt, as the agency fell behind in buying salt last summer.
This winter was sort of a perfect storm, if you will, given the severity of the winter that we faced, plus the fact that we had to actually use a part of our normal salt budget to refill our salt sheds at the beginning of this year because of the previous winter that lasted through the end of April.
The proposal is included in a bill that has cleared the Senate and House committee and is eligible for debate in the full House. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy this afternoon with highs around 61. Northwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overcast again tonight. Scattered rain showers likely. Lows around 40. Scattered rain showers likely tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 42. Cloudy skies. A dusting of snow Thursday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 60.
Hey, it's Sharon Trobner, neurobrain expert with a brand new version of Ask the Expert. The other day, I got a letter from Tim in Cleveland. He noticed his focus and memory have slipped in the last few years, and he's been desperately searching for a solution. He writes, Dear Sharon, the other day I was in a conversation at work, and all of a sudden, I just zoned out. That senior moment when you space out and forget what you're talking about. It was embarrassing. What can I do? Hey, Tim, thanks for the letter. The good news is now there is a way to step into another gear for your brain. I recommend Limitless, the brain pill of the future. Neuroscientists are calling Limitless a major discovery in brain science. Just take it, and within 30 minutes, you'll have a new level of focus and clarity never thought possible. Call Limitless now and find out how to get a free bottle today.
To find out how to get your free bottle of Limitless, call 800-605-4757. That's 800-605-4757. Get your free bottle for a limited time. Call now, 800-605-4757, 800-605-4757.
You reach for your sunglasses. You can't find your chapstick. You try to get the kids calmed down. You eat your lunch on the go. You send a text message real fast. You are not the only one on the road. And even if you were, taking your eyes off the road for even a second could cause you to wreck. You are responsible for your actions behind the wheel. 0 fatalities. That's the goal. And it starts with you.
Brought to you by the Iowa Department of Public Safety, Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau.
You reach for your sunglasses. You can't find your chapstick. You try to get the kids calmed down. You eat your lunch on the go. You send a text message real fast. You are not the only one on the road. And even if you were, taking your eyes off the road for even a second could cause you to wreck. You are responsible for your actions behind the wheel. 0 fatalities. That's the goal. And it starts with you.
Brought to you by the Iowa Department of Public Safety, Governor's Traffic Safety Bureau.
Ooh, I love that house.
Yeah, but look whose sign is in the yard. That's not who we're working with.
We don't have to work with them just because they have it listed. Our agent at Neighborhood Realty can show us the house.
They can?
Well, sure, they can show us any house we like, no matter whose sign is in the yard.
Well, then let's call Neighborhood Realty for a tour.
I'm Sasha Fisher with Neighborhood Realty. We can put you in the home of your dreams, no matter who it's listed with. Neighborhood Realty, online at neighborhood-realty.net.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
Yeah, this is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine, and of course, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. That's a big thing, and we don't have to worry about being boring today because we have Sam Clovis with us. Sam Clovis is a very well-known name in our part of the state. He ran for the U.S. Senate once. Of course, he went to Washington, D.C. with the Trump administration, and he's back in our area now, and he's on the air with us. So, Sam, thank you very much again for being here today.
Always great to be with you, Mike.
You know, a while ago, a couple of years ago, I did a book interview with Stuart Taylor Jr. Now, Stuart Taylor Jr. wrote a book with another man called The Campus Rape Frenzy, and it focused on accusations at the university level of rape. Now, that is a serious accusation. If true, I don't think there's a punishment great enough. I am appalled at the thought of sexual assault and rape of anyone. Of course, most of the rape victims are women. So any male who would use his superior size and strength to brutalize a woman, I can't think again of a punishment great enough. Yeah. But Dr. Taylor mentioned that, we focused on false allegations of rape and how ludicrous the university's response were to almost every accusation of rape. Now, the closest example, or the most familiar example I can tell you about in the audience about is the Duke lacrosse players. Three Duke lacrosse players were accused about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, of rape by a, mentally unbalanced black woman. Now, it had all the right elements. These 3 young lacrosse players were white from wealthy families, and they went to an elite university. The young woman was a stripper, a single mother, and she was an African American. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And outrage burst onto the scene. And these 3 young men, if they wouldn't have been if their family hadn't been wealthy, they'd be in prison today. Right. It turned out there was not a single bit of truth to these allegations. Now, I talked with Dr. Taylor about that. And at some point, I must have snickered at the lying and the absurdity of some of the accusations. The Duke lacrosse thing was just one. There was a famous case in Virginia that Rolling Stone covered that turned out to be completely false. Right. And I must have snickered at the sheer stupidity of what I was listening to from Dr. Taylor. The next thing I knew, I was accused of being a rape sympathizer. And there were calls for my resignation. There were letters and emails sent to the corporate headquarters in Portland of Alpha Media demanding I be taken off the air because I was a rape sympathizer. Of all the things I never expected to be accused of in my life, It is supporting a terrible, terrible crime like that. I thought of that again this morning when I saw that Brett Kavanaugh was going to be a lecturer, a part-time lecturer at George Mason University. Now, George Mason University is a libertarian school, is a libertarian university. But immediately, young people organized in protest of Brett Kavanaugh's position as guest lecturer because he was a violent sexual predator. A sitting justice of the United States Supreme Court, without sufficient evidence, certainly, is acknowledged by a lot of young people. It's a fact in their minds that Brett Kavanaugh is a rapist, for God's sake. And a young woman came forward to identify herself as a survivor of sexual abuse. And I believe it takes something to overcome a traumatic experience like that. I am not trying to make light of her terrible experience at all. But she said the mere fact that Brett Kavanaugh might be on campus was affecting her mental health. Sam, I don't know what to make of. I'm getting to be an older man. I'm close to your age. I don't understand the world. I don't understand that thinking. I don't.
Well, I think that there is and I certainly cannot even place myself at all. I can't even begin to fathom the trauma and the mental distress that would come and linger.
Absolutely.
After a sexual assault. There's no way, and would ever be able to say that, well, I know how you feel. Well, I don't know, and I will never know. Never know how they feel.
No.
So I'm not surprised at that kind of comment from a victim, and that is a true victim, someone who's been violently assaulted. And I don't have any reason to think otherwise. The trouble with the whole thing is that Brett Kavanaugh is not a sexual predator. And that's the issue, is that he's no proof whatsoever of his violence toward women at all. No proof, nothing there to generate that. So my only comment would be is that the woman's anxiety, as much as it may be, should be focused on people who are truly violent or have a record of violence, and Brett Kavanaugh does not. And the fact is that he is a lecturer on campus, and you're going to see this. When it was the thought that he might be a guest lecturer at Harvard, the people at Harvard had a similar reaction. We have because when you go back and think about again the progressives and Saul Alinsky and all of the other factors that go into these types, what the tactics are. It is the seriousness of the accusation, whether there's proof or not, does not seem to matter. It is the seriousness of the accusation that seems to matter the most. And so I think that's where we are in our society. And again, because of social media, one side of the story is presented, or the side that you think is being presented. And under the conditions that we have on many campuses, and the oversensitizing that we have on a lot of issues, then you end up with this very strong mentality again. So a person like Kavanaugh will never get a break. My own personal experience with this is that if you apply for a job on a college campus, and I have, and I'll just be upfront, I've applied for jobs on college campuses. The feedback that I have gotten is that all we have to do is Google your name and you are automatically disqualified. And the reason is because whether I've done anything wrong, I haven't done anything wrong, I haven't broken any laws, I have a spotless record, I have a life full of achievement and service to this country, 50 years service to this country. All of those things don't matter, because the first thing that you see when you go on there is because I support Donald Trump. I support Donald Trump. You Google my name, and that's the first thing that pops up. And then all of the negative stuff, that came out during the my confirmation hearing, and it's impossible for people like me to get work in academic circles simply because of our politics.
Well, yeah.
And that has nothing to do with violence. That's just simply because we believe a different way than most of the other people do.
Well,
so imagine Brett Kavanaugh, who's been accused of sexual violence, and imagine how hard it would be for him. So this is all part of that mentality that's out there that is going to, you talked about the unity of thinking. Well, this is the unity of thinking that is hostile to anything that does not comport with the absolute party line of the progressive movement.
Well, there's a new theory out there, or a new feeling out there among the cultural left that they've redefined free speech now. You may speak and say anything you want to, but you will be punished by us. In other words, they'll go to your employer. They'll even go to your family and try to ruin your personal and professional life. It's
Right.
disgusting, and I think I hope that our courts can evolve to a point where they see this for what it is. It's extortion and blackmail, and
Right.
And they make it actionable by lawsuit. Sam Clovis is our guest at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Big news coming out of Washington, D.C. this weekend was Kirstjen Nielsen resigned on Sunday. Kirstjen Nielsen, the leader of the Department of Homeland Security. There is a mess at our border, and the rumors that we have heard is that Ms. Nielsen was removed because she was not handling the border situation as President Trump wished it to be handled. Some people see Stephen Moore behind this. Now, Stephen Moore is a very bright man who is a hardliner on immigration in the Trump administration. What is your take on this event?
Well, I think it's Stephen Miller is the
Stephen Miller. I beg your pardon. Stephen Moore is the writer.
Stephen Moore is the economist who's,
Right.
Who's getting dragged through a knothole right now because he wants to be on the Fed. So that's the. But no, I know Stephen Miller very well. I mean, Stephen and I worked cheek by jowl in the campaign, and he's bright. He's an incredibly gifted young man in many ways. And but the one thing that where he is, where no others will go, is the fact that he is probably the hardest. He is an immigration hawk, and make no mistake about it. Now, I'm right there with him on 99% of his positions because I think he's absolutely right. And we worked tirelessly on the campaign to refine our message on immigration. The issue there with Kirstjen Nielsen, I think, was that she was unable, I think, to provide the leadership, and this is a subtle issue. I think she certainly was a bureaucratic ability. I think she was working hard to try to follow the law, but what she was not able to do was to provide the leadership and the moral authority to go out there and establish some very clear lines within the law that would allow us to deal with immigration on a much firmer basis. I think there are still things that the president can and should do that would help, and I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that he is going to absolutely shut down the border. And what that may not mean anything about commerce, because commerce can still come and go, but he can shut down the border if he so chose. He could bring enough forces together to make sure that not a scorpion was able to cross the southern border if he so chose. And it would be expensive, and it would be very visible, and it would be dramatic because there would be a lot of confrontation. There would be a lot of people that would be incarcerated. The problem we have is right now we don't have the infrastructure to deal with the tens of thousands of people who are trying to enter this country illegally. And I think a lot of them are trying to get here illegally right now because I think they know that this president and eventually the Congress of the United States will come around to his thinking, and we will, in fact, make it so a scorpion will not be able to cross the southern border. So I think that's where that's why we're getting this major surge right now. but I also think that it's quite possible. And I just don't think that Secretary Nielsen was able to provide the leadership necessary to move the department in that direction. I just don't think she was. And because you have to remember that this department, 8 years of Obama and 8 years of George Bush, 7 years of George Bush, after 9/11, with the Department of Homeland Security, is not permeated with the immigration hardliners. Quite the opposite. And so I think that's one of the challenges that this president has. And I don't think she was not pulling her weight.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest is Sam Clovis. Beto O'Rourke has gotten under my skin here the last couple of days, Sam. He was here in town on Friday, and this is what he had to say in brief concerning illegal workers to our country, or illegal immigrants to our country. He practically got weepy, from what I understand, about their humanity. I didn't know anybody was denying their humanity, but he of course took the gratuitous shots at the Trump administration for separating families, and oh my God, aren't we terrible for not being more welcoming to immigrants? And then he said the key words that every single Democratic candidate for the nomination of president, or to be nominated by their party for president, every one of them says this. They are taking jobs that American workers don't want. The accusation that American workers are too lazy is always there. So we need industrious, hardworking people from south of the border, because our people have grown indolent, lazy, and entitled. You know, I sit in a town that was built on the backs of people working in packing plants. One of the men I talked to who retired out of the Hormel plant, it was Tobin Pack when he worked there, described it as man-killing work. And he worked there for 30 years and raised his kids and bought his house and made the world a better place in every way that he could. Now, some of the people in attendance at the O'Rourke rally and these Democratic candidates coming through our state who say these lies are sometimes the children or grandchildren of the same people who worked these man-killing jobs year in and year out to feed their children and make the world a better place, and they stand silent with that accusation in the air. It's disgraceful as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the issue is that when Beto O'Rourke or anybody else, Robert Francis O'Rourke was calling by what he really is. And so...
Robert Francis O'Rourke, he's an Irish Catholic. I'm surprised he's not disqualified.
Well, again, and comes from very, very high privilege, too. I mean, he's from a wealthy family. And so the issue is that he never finishes the sentence. When he says that the illegal immigrants come to this country and take jobs that Americans won't do, what he doesn't finish the sentence by saying they won't do at that price.
That's right.
And so that's the rest of the sentence, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. And that is the idea is that this is about economics, and there are many dynamics that are in play here. So let's take a look at what some of those dynamics are. That we have people who come to this country that on average have a 7th grade education, on average cannot speak English, on average are not able to support themselves. They come to the country and they go into these enclaves in these various cities and states. Thus, what they do is they end up constipating the system so that we cannot get the economic mobility that we typically have had in our country's history, where there was a time when people in the South migrated to North, so that's where the jobs were. Now today, the jobs are in the South, and so you would think that we'd have a natural migration from the North to the South to the jobs and that kind of thing, but that's not taking place. It's because the people that were illegal immigrants are competing for jobs is on the same seam where most of the native-born and legal immigrants that come to this country are very much of the same educational status. So the illegal immigrant is not taking the jobs out of the manufacturing plants in Flint, Michigan. They're not taking the computer jobs in Silicon Valley. What they're taking are the jobs where people who are on the margins of our society economically are exactly in the same place. And so the whole notion that what we have here is the illegal immigration is the first word of that is illegal. It is not, they are not coming to this country legally. And therefore, they break the law to enter this country. They break the law to get a job. They break the law to stay here. And what's worse is they are abetted by people who are every bit the criminals that they are because they abet this illegal behavior. That is what is missing in all of the dialogue from the left, is the fact that this is illegal. So it is so what laws do we follow? What laws do we not follow? Where is the line drawn? If we believe in the rule of law, then we have to believe in the rule of law for everything, and that no one is above the law. So if that's not the case, then why do we have a constitution? Why do we even have laws in the first place? Are we going to leave it to man to enforce the laws? Or do we go back and look at the true derivative of law and start with the Mosaic Law and work our way down to where we are today? This is the kind of thing that outrages me more than anything, is what I call the big lie. And that's the big lie of the progressive movement, and how they try to persuade people through conflating issues, through framing issues, through the whole notion of perpetuating a lie. And that is exactly what the progressive movement is about in this country.
All right, Sam Clovis has been our guest, and we hope to have Sam Clovis on with us regularly, perhaps Thursdays at 3. So I hope you'll tune in at that time. Sam, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it, and God bless you.
I think it was Thursdays at 3. Did I just say Tuesdays? That was a mistake. Thursdays at 3. Okay, good enough. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right, AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. It's 3:32. Thanks to Sam Clovis. We'll have Pastor Austin Hill and Father Patrick Damon here at 4 o'clock. News coming up at AM 1400 KVFD. Yeah, news coming up at AM 1400 KVFD.
Step into spring with ideas and inspirations. From your living room to your bedroom, the smallest changes can make a big difference. Stop into Mary Kay's and let me help you decorate for spring with beautiful artificial flowers and bouquets, vases, planters, home decor, and more. Grab yourself a Woodwick candle or diffuser in your favorite fragrance and listen to the crackling of a wooden wick. For a perfectly lovely way to bring spring into your home, shop Mary Kay's Gifts and Home Decor next to Daniel Pharmacy, 1108 Central Avenue, downtown Fort Dodge.
Manic Mondays, finally Fridays. Every day of the week has something special about it, except Tuesdays, right? Not true. At Wild Rose Casino and Resort, Tuesdays are packed with winning and fun. From the Club 50 slot tournament from 11 to 3, and all-you-can-eat chicken buffet for $5.99 to $3 drinks featuring Tito's Vodka. That's more than enough to make your Tuesdays terrific at Wild Rose Casino and Resort, Jefferson. You'd rather be here.
Must be 21 or older. If you're someone you know needs gambling treatment, call 1-800-BETS-OFF.
With the stock market at all-time highs, cash in your profits now and invest in an asset that can potentially pay for up to 20 or more years. That's the sound of a producing oil well and the sound of a smart investment. If you're an SEC-defined accredited investor, you can take advantage of Encore Energy's projects. Call now to learn how you can potentially achieve 20 or more years of income and deduct 100% of every dollar invested against all forms of income. Call 1-800-803-8511. Invest in your future and buy oil. Encore is drilling in an area that is potentially one of the most prolific horizontal oil plays in the entire country. Oil prices are projected to rise, so you need to own a piece of an oil field. Encore Energy is the most active oil and gas operator in its core area of operations. Call now and learn how to deduct 100% of your investment and create 20 or more years of potential monthly income. Call 1-800-803-8511. You'll be calling directly to the home office of Encore Energy. That's 1-800-803-8511. Oil investments involve a high degree of risk and actual results may vary.
We stand for people, progress and pride.
We are the Iowa Farm Bureau, and we believe in nurturing our state's most precious resource, our children. That's why we provide millions of dollars in scholarships, grants, and resources to Iowa students and teachers. For more information, contact your local county farm bureau.
People, progress and pride, it's true. Iowa Farm Bureau, helping you.
What if I told you there was a way to step into another gear for your brain and be much sharper, more focused, and improve your memory to a level that you could only dream about and notice these results in 30 minutes? Hard to believe? Neuroscientists are calling this new brain discovery the biggest advancement in brain science to date. It's called Limitless, the brain pill of the future. Take it, and within 30 minutes, you'll transport your mind to a new level of focus and clarity you would have never thought possible.
I took Limitless and it started working in minutes. All of a sudden, it felt like a dark cloud had been lifted up right before my eyes. I have a mental clarity I've never felt before.
Biz execs, athletes, teachers, and students are calling Limitless a secret weapon for the brain. You have nothing to lose, so call now and find out how to get a free bottle today.
To find out how to get your free bottle of Limitless, call 800-681-9041. That's 800-681-9041. Free bottle for a limited time. Call now, 800-681-9041, 800-681-9041.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. A Fort Dodge man found guilty of robbing the Fort Dodge Applebee's last fall was sentenced to 25 years in prison on Monday, but he says he's innocent. 29-year-old Cledio Clark of Fort Dodge was convicted in February of first-degree robbery of the Fort Dodge Applebee's at 2810 Fifth Avenue South in the early mornings of September 30th, 2018. Clark claimed his innocence on Monday, saying that investigators forced people to say false things about him and that he was charged because he was not cooperating with investigators in a double homicide murder case from last fall. In that case, Tanner King is accused of killing brothers Marion and L. Dominic Rhodes. King is also accused of shooting at Clark that night on October 19th. Clark must serve at least 70% of the 25-year sentence for the first-degree robbery sentence, which is 17 and a half years. 2 men were injured in a collision involving an SUV and a motorcycle in Humboldt on Sunday evening. The incident occurred at 6:04 p.m. on Sunday at the 1700 block of Highway 169 when a 2017 Ford Explorer, driven by 48-year-old David Hassey of Bird, Iowa, rear-ended a 2015 Harley-Davidson motorcycle driven by 66-year-old Ricky Vinsand of Humboldt. The Iowa State Patrol says that Vinsand was stopped northbound on Highway 169 waiting to make a left-hand turn, and Hassey did not see the motorcycle had stopped. Vinsand was injured and transported to Iowa Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, and his condition is unknown. Hassey was also injured but was not taken to the hospital, according to the Iowa State Patrol crash report. Humboldt Police, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, Humboldt Fire Department, and Humboldt EMS assisted on the scene. North and eastbound traffic on Kenyon Road Bridge in Fort Dodge will be reduced to 1 lane tomorrow. Motorists can expect delays and are urged to use an alternate route. Iowa Department of Transportation will be performing a bridge inspection. Charges have been filed in Cerro Gordo County District Court against a former social worker who allegedly gave false testimony in child welfare cases. Radio Iowa's Bob Fisher reports.
The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation says 30-year-old Chelsea Gray of Lawler, a former Social Work 2 case manager with the Iowa Department of Human Services, was arrested on Monday and charged with 3 counts of perjury. Last June, District Associate Judge Adam Sauer found Gray told lies or misrepresentations during a proceeding in which parents were unfairly stripped of the rights to 4 children. Back in October, Cerro Gordo County Attorney Carlisle Dallin says he would refer Gray's case to another agency for investigation. Dallin at the time said he wanted to ensure that the potential criminal matter could be evaluated fairly and independently, since his office uncovered Gray's false statements and brought them to the court's attention. Bob Fisher, Radio Iowa, Mason City.
Iowa DOT officials are asking legislators to help ensure their dwindling stockpile of road salt is properly replenished. Lee Wilkinson is the top administrator for the Iowa DOT.
This was actually our most severe winter that I can recall. We have a winter severity index. On a winter severity standpoint, this has been the highest winter we've had, at least since early 2000s.
Wilkinson says the DOT needs $9 million extra to buy the salt, as the agency fell behind in buying salt last summer.
This winter was sort of a perfect storm, if you will, given the severity of the winter that we faced, plus the fact that we had to actually use a part of our normal salt budget to refill our salt sheds at the beginning of this year because of the previous winter that lasted through the end of April.
The proposal is included in a bill that has cleared the Senate and House committee and is eligible for debate in the full House. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's a look at how the markets closed on Tuesday. I'm Jesse Stewart reporting. USDA expecting larger corn stocks while they trimmed the soybean stocks on Tuesday in the April round of USDA reports. Final numbers, soybeans for May unchanged at $8.98 3/4. July beans unchanged at $9.11 3/4. November beans down a half penny at $9.31 3/4 on Tuesday. May bean meal down 10 cents a ton at $309.10. May bean oil 16 points higher at $29.04. May corn and July corn both unchanged, with May at $3.60, July corn at $3.68.5, December corn up a quarter penny at $3.89 1/4. May Chicago wheat down 5 3/4 at $4.59.5. May Kansas City winter wheat down 4 at $4.27.5. May Minneapolis spring wheat down 1 at $5.23. Meantime, feeder cattle trade April down 57 at $146.15. May down 40 at $150.17, and August down 10 at $157.60. Live cattle for April up 10 at $125.90. June down 22 at $120.35. August down 7 at $117.65. Hog trade April down 7 at $78.52. The rest limit lower. May at $86.45. June at $95.15, and July hogs at $97.97. That's closing markets. I'm Jesse Stewart reporting.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy this afternoon with highs around 61. Northwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overcast again tonight. Scattered rain showers likely. Lows around 40. Scattered rain showers likely tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 42. Cloudy skies. A dusting of snow Thursday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 61.
It's getting time for the delicacy of wild morel mushrooms. But what should you know about them? Hello, I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Morel mushrooms are prized for their flavor, but you have to make sure it's a morel. Janet Hackert, a nutrition specialist with the University of Missouri Extension, says not every mushroom is edible and some can be very dangerous.
It is really important that the stem be hollow, because if the stem is not hollow, that's a sign that it's poisonous. There's a mushroom that looks very much like a morel, but is poisonous.
Once you've safely identified and harvested the morel mushroom, she says, it must be cooked.
Unlike other mushrooms, morel mushrooms are not to be eaten raw. If you eat them raw, they can really irritate your stomach and cause some serious problems. So they must be cooked before eaten.
But before eating, you must rinse them and then soak them in salt water for an hour, changing out the water to remove sand, dirt, and small insects. They not only taste good, but morels are nutritious.
The really cool thing about mushrooms is, although they're a vegetable and we eat them in salads and stir fries and that kind of thing, they are also pretty high in protein as far as vegetables go.
They also contain potassium and phytonutrients. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
We depend on our drinking water supply daily, but where does that water come from? Your water provider encourages you to get to know your local water source so together we can protect and preserve it. The investments we make as a community to protect our water source now ensure we have a sustainable drinking water supply for the future. Visit drinktap.org to learn more. This message is brought to you by the American Water Works Association and your local water provider.
It's 4 a.m., Monday, and you're literally sucking baby snot through a tube because she's congested. Man, that's love. And if you love her that much, love her enough to make sure she's buckled in the right car seat. To make sure your child's in the right seat for their age and size, visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Getting the most out of your micronutrients. Hello, I'm Megan Grebner, and this is Managing for Profit on Brownfield, a content partnership with Verdesian Life Sciences. Micronutrients might only be needed in small quantities, but they play a big role in crop growth and development. In this Managing for Profit, Todd Carpenter with Verdesian says growers can improve yields by making sure micronutrients are applied at the right rate and at the right time. We'll find out more in Brownfield right after this.
GTG, BRB, OMW, be there in a few. You may think that these kinds of texts are fine because of their length, and you can easily send them at a stoplight. But no, answering one text can take your attention away from the road for 5 seconds. And traveling at 55 miles an hour, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Make good decisions, don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt Pure Love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
The importance of micronutrients can often be overlooked, but copper, zinc, manganese, and boron play vital roles in crop growth and development. Todd Carpenter with Verdesian Life Sciences says just because they're needed in small quantities doesn't undermine their importance.
Boron is involved in cell elongation and involved in cell walls. Zinc and copper are involved in various enzymatic processes. Manganese is involved in photosynthesis. Paying attention to having the proper amount and ratio of available micronutrients for the plants is critical.
He tells Brownfield Verdesian has launched MicroSync granular micronutrients for row crops.
They leverage a combination of technologies and micronutrient sources that really helps to improve availability. We've leveraged the NutriPaction technology, and that technology in and of itself allows us to take very fine powdered micronutrient sources and compress them into a granule that is readily soluble, that also can be built to the same size and density of the other granules that it's going into the blend, into fertilizer blends with, so that we don't have any problem with the granule segregating out. It also spreads efficiently, and then it also, upon wetting, comes apart readily to be able to disperse into the soil to provide nutrients. We've also used our Verdesian polymer technologies with MicroSync. And our Verdesian polymer technology is a product there that enhances nutrient availability and nutrient uptake, and it keeps nutrients available season long.
By having the correct rate use and timing, Carpenter says farmers can maximize yields and improve their return on investment.
The strong micronutrient fertility program ensures that there's no holes in that fertility program. It gives us the best opportunity to maximize the yield potential of that plant. For soybeans, manganese is a huge component to maximizing photosynthetic efficiency of that plant. Zinc is of huge importance to corn in terms of grain quality and grain fill and maximizing test weight.
I'm Megan Grebner with Managing for Profit on Brownfield, a content partnership with Verdesian Life Sciences.
Pure brute strength. That's what you get with Midland hydraulic doors from P&R Entry Door. Midland doors are perfect for commercial and agricultural applications. When you choose a Midland garage door from P&R Entry Door, you can be confident you've chosen the toughest commercial door on the market. Whether you want a shop door for agriculture, an aviation hangar, or a commercial building, P&R Entry Door has what you need. For a free estimate, call 573-8883. P&R Entry Door online at pnrentrydoors.com.
Blue Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
Who would have thought there'd be entire aisles devoted to bottled water and that people would buy more water than pop? I'm Brian with Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters here in Fort Dodge. Spring water, drinking water, mineral water. There's so many choices, and we're proud to offer you them all. From our own refreshingly pure drinking water to ultra pure Mountain Valley spring water, Blue Ribbon Pelham's is your complete water store.
First State Bank and its ag lenders are first for you. They strive to help you grow with their hometown roots, quick local decisions, competitive rates, and superior service. When it comes to agriculture, they strive to be your #1 financial institution leader. Stop in or give Dave Taylor, Troy Tilges, and Steve Vandesen ag loan officers in Webster City a call to see how they can help you grow. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
First State Bank, first for you.
Get up first thing, smoke a cigarette before lunch, after lunch. Now that I'm talking about it, I kind of feeling like I've lost about 4 hours of every day. I decided I needed to find an alternative. So I started looking, and then Juul came up. I did both for a while. Eventually I just switched over, and it's very quick.
Mimi made the switch July 2015. Make the switch at JUUL.com. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
Well, there we go. 60 rounds of freedom. You got it, man. AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. The subject of privilege has come up again. White privilege, of course. Never mind that there are many, many people of color and ethnic and religious minorities who are very, very wealthy and extremely privileged. White privilege seems to be the only privilege that matters because, you see, we grew up white and unaware of our own color and what it means to be white in America. We just don't think of it. That's right, we don't. And here's the real reason. Minorities, especially African Americans, think collectively. They think of themselves as part of a group. African Americans, black people. White people don't. I don't think of myself as part of any group of white people. My ancestors were Irish Catholic. I'm not. I'm an American first, always. Other than that, my name is Mike Devine, and I live in Fort Dodge, Iowa. That's who I am. My ethnic background or religious background are secondary. Now, I bring this up because Kyle Korver of the Utah Jazz, a basketball player, a successful basketball player with Iowa ties, has written a piece in the Players Tribune called Privileged. Now, he starts out with a tough story about one of his teammates getting his leg broke by the police. His teammate's name was Thabo. I know who he's talking about. But I don't remember Thabo's last name, and I don't think Korver gives it here. And Kyle Korver seems to blame this on the police and the fact that Thabo was a black person, as a black man. First, let me say that Kyle Korver is ruminating in this piece, and I'm going to put it on my Facebook page, so go to AM 1400 KVFT. Kyle Korver is ruminating in this piece about his privilege. And he ends the piece, as a matter of fact, by saying, time for me to shut up and listen. You know something, Korver? I think you're right. If Kyle Korver thinks he's privileged, it's because he is privileged. He's a professional athlete who makes millions and millions of dollars. He's a celebrity. He's privileged. Now, if he wants somebody like me to join him in his shame or to sit silently and be lectured about my privilege, I'm going to have to tell Kyle Korver to go jump. You know? I'm going to have to tell Kyle to go jump because I do know some people of privilege here in Fort Dodge and around the area. I do know some people of privilege. They inherited wealth or whatever. That's just the way it is. Now, I'm not going to whine and cry about that because I'm Mike Devine, an individual, and I don't join with others of my group to whine and cry. This is just what happened in life. And I'm going to try to make the best of life that I can. And I'm going to try not to join with others who might have some sort of grudge against other ethnic groups. As a matter of fact, I would never think of doing that. Join a group of white racists dedicated
dedicated to oppressing others. I would never do that. Now, Mr. Corver, Mr. Corver tells us that African Americans are more than 5 times as likely to be incarcerated as white Americans. The fact that black Americans are more than twice as likely to live in poverty as white Americans is wrong. These facts are wrong, he says. The fact that black unemployment rates nationally are double that of overall employment rates is wrong. Wrong in the sense that it's somehow my fault. Not rich guys like Kyle Korver. It's my fault. Actually, I should join with a rich young man like Kyle Korver in feeling these things are wrong. And I should be able to sit back and have my meager circumstances somehow reduced even further because Kyle Korver feels guilty about something. Because he saw his friend Thabo get his leg broke by the cops. I'll tell you, I've had my noggin bounced off the concrete a time or two by the police in my life. And you know why? Because I was a drunk kid with too many beers. That's why. And I swung at a cop once over in Waterloo. I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. Mr. Carver tells us that black imprisonment rates for drug charges are 6 times higher nationally than white imprisonment rates for drug charges, and that's wrong. The fact black Americans own approximately 1/10 of the wealth that white Americans own is wrong. Well, as a wealthy white American, Mr. Corver, I have the solution to your problem. Give half your wealth, your considerable wealth, to African Americans for distribution in the state that you play ball in. That would be Utah. Which, by the way, has about the same percentage of African Americans as Iowa does. Very few. Kyle Korver, of all people, seeks to lecture people like me, seeks to tell people like me, and probably like you, that we must now consider our whiteness. That's what J.D. Scholten, who ran against Congressman King in the last election cycle, said he struggles with his whiteness. I don't struggle with my whiteness. If I struggle with anything, it's my humanness. But I don't struggle with my whiteness. I don't believe, in fact, I know and can probably prove that being a white man in the state of Iowa didn't significantly benefit me any more than other white men who grow up in a similar circumstance. And if there is a greater rate of imprisonment for African Americans due to drug crimes, maybe the African American community, Kyle Korver, can get together and talk about African American culture and behavior that's causing this problem rather than terrible white racism. Because I'll tell you, starting after the Second World War, there was billions and trillions of dollars spent to lift up African Americans. It hasn't been enough, and we're still talking reparations. There are white liberals, of course, like Kyle Korver especially, who are talking reparations. You know, Kyle Korver could give up $1 million or $2 million. It wouldn't hurt him at all. But you ask me to reduce my standard of living, I'm going to tell you I can't reduce my standard of living and continue to eat. So until Korver and his fellow white liberals and his fellow African Americans can get this into their heads, I don't think we have anything to talk about. As long as somebody like Beto O'Rourke can come to our town, an old packing plant town, where generations of men did man-killing work in god-awful conditions to make the lives of their families better, I'm not going to hear about privilege. I'm not going to hear Beto O'Rourke talk about hardworking immigrant workers doing jobs that he doesn't come out and say it. What he says is that white people don't want. What he says is that Americans don't want. Well, they're just coming here to do the jobs that Americans don't want. That's utter nonsense. Americans did band together to build a labor movement that the Democratic Party under Bill Clinton crushed and reduced the living status of native-born workers in the United States considerably. And flooding the labor market now with illegals takes advantage both of workers from Central America who identify more. I identify more with workers from Central America than I do with rich white people, frankly. But what I don't want to hear is from somebody like Kyle Korver. Can we be okay with that? If he's having a problem, go see a psychiatrist or a priest. All right, the news is next, and you're listening to AM 1400 KVFD.
From tuning an engine to replacing a fuse, you can learn it all under the hood. Heard every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
A federal grand jury ramps up the charges in a college cheating scandal. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. Now, some high-profile parents are facing more jail time if convicted, a day after others agreed to plead guilty. Fox's Gernal Scott has this live.
Lisa Lori Loughlin and her husband Massimo Giannulli are among 16 parents facing money laundering charges in addition to wire and mail fraud. They are accused of paying to get their kids into college, some as recruits for a sport they may never have taken part in. As they fight to stay out of jail, there's also a legal accusation of unfairness. Defense attorneys say prosecutors are shopping for a favorable judge by adding them to an already existing indictment. This comes a day after actress Felicity Huffman agrees to plead guilty in the case. She'll officially enter that plea next month, Lisa.
Thanks, Gernal. The U.S. Attorney General tells lawmakers some of what they want from the Russia probe is coming soon.
The Appropriations Subcommittee is a chance to review the Justice Department's budget request. The chairman, Democrat Jose Serrano, made clear from the start.
Mr. Attorney General, we could not hold this hearing without mentioning the elephant in the room.
That elephant is Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on Russian election interference. Attorney General William Barr tells lawmakers a redacted version will be ready for release within a week.
And then I will engage with the chairman of both judiciary committees about that report and about any further requests that they have.
Barr says redactions will protect ongoing prosecutions, intelligence sources, and privacy.
Fox's Jared Halpern on the Hill. President Trump downplaying the personnel shakeup at Homeland Security.
And we're not doing anything very big as far as what we need. Homeland Security, that's exactly what we want.
During a White House meeting with Egypt's president today, President Trump also accusing Democrats again of being obstructionists on immigration policy. This is Fox News.
There's nothing small about your business. Your passion, your hours, your reputation, it's all huge. Your partnerships, even bigger. With Dell Small Business Technology Advisors, you'll get the tech, advice, and one-on-one partnership to help your business grow. Because with reliable Dell PCs with Intel Core processors, you can focus on what matters most, getting business done. Call 877-BUY-DELL to speak with an advisor today. That's 877-BUY-DELL.
Ah, the copperhead snake. It hisses before attacking. But that's not a copperhead. That's the Sullivan's RV freshwater tank overflowing into their black one, which is backing into their vent pipe, making for a very different kind of attack. One that arrives just in time for taco night. It's wild out there. When it gets too wild, Progressive has your RV covered. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
House hearing today, Attorney General William Barr also getting grilled on a host of other issues. Pennsylvania Congressman Matt Cartwright, one of several Democrats, questioning Barr's independence and challenging the Justice Department's recent support for an ongoing court case that could scrap Obamacare.
Well, I'm dismayed to hear that you're willing to drive our healthcare system off the cliff with no plan for replacing it.
Well, I think your premise that the Justice Department makes healthcare policy is simply wrong. We take legal positions in cases.
Barr refusing to reveal internal conversations with the president, his chief of staff, and the Health and Human Services secretary on that issue. A federal judge in Maryland denies bond to the man originally accused of stealing a truck and now suspected of plotting terror with that truck, accused of wanting to mow down pedestrians at the National Harbor facility. 28-year-old Rondell Henry, a naturalized U.S. citizen, will now remain in custody as the case moves forward. U.S. forces in Afghanistan now say it was 3 U.S. Marines killed in a roadside bombing near Bagram Air Force Base. Earlier reports said 2 soldiers and 1 Marine.
One of the 3 Marines killed yesterday was a decorated firefighter in the Bronx.
Christopher Slutman, aged 43, was a 15-year veteran of the FDNY and worked for Ladder 27. He leaves behind his wife Shannon and 3 young daughters. Today in New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio and the FDNY commissioner held a moment of silence for Slutman and the other Marines killed yesterday.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. St. John's in the market for a new basketball coach. Chris Mullen, considered the greatest player in school history, stepping down as coach with 2 years remaining on his contract. Mullen releasing a statement that cites a recent personal loss. He just finished his first winning season and only trip to the NCAA tournament. I'm Lisa Brady. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
Good afternoon. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. A Fort Dodge man found guilty of robbing the Fort Dodge Applebee's last fall was sentenced to 25 years in prison on Monday, but he says he's innocent. 29-year-old Cleo Clark of Fort Dodge was convicted in February of first-degree robbery of the Fort Dodge Applebee's at 2810 Fifth Avenue South in the early mornings of September 30th, 2018. Clark claimed his innocence on Monday, saying that investigators forced people to say false things about him and that he was charged because he was not cooperating with investigators in a double homicide murder case from last fall. In that case, Tanner King is accused of killing brothers Marion and L. Dominic Rhodes. King is also accused of shooting at Clark that night on October 19th. Clark must serve at least 70% of the 25-year sentence for the first-degree robbery sentence, which is 17 and a half years. 2 men were injured in a collision involving an SUV and a motorcycle in Humboldt on Sunday evening. The incident occurred at 6:04 p.m. on Sunday at the 1700 block of Highway 169 when a 2017 Ford Explorer, driven by 48-year-old David Hassey of Bird, Iowa, rear-ended a 2015 Harley-Davidson motorcycle driven by 66-year-old Ricky Vinsand of Humboldt. The Iowa State Patrol says that Vinsand was stopped northbound on Highway 169 waiting to make a left-hand turn, and Hassey did not see the motorcycle had stopped. Vinsand was injured and transported to Iowa Methodist Hospital in Des Moines, and his condition is unknown. Hassey was also injured but was not taken to the hospital, according to the Iowa State Patrol crash report. Humboldt Police, Humboldt County Sheriff's Office, Humboldt Fire Department, and Humboldt EMS assisted on the scene. North and eastbound traffic on Kenyon Road Bridge in Fort Dodge will be reduced to 1 lane tomorrow. Motorists can expect delays and are urged to use an alternate route. Iowa Department of Transportation will be performing a bridge inspection. Charges have been filed in Cerro Gordo County District Court against a former social worker who allegedly gave false testimony in child welfare cases. Radio Iowa's Bob Fisher reports.
The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation says 30-year-old Chelsea Gray of Lawler, a former Social Work 2 case manager with the Iowa Department of Human Services, was arrested on Monday and charged with 3 counts of perjury. Last June, District Associate Judge Adam Sauer found Gray told lies or misrepresentations during a proceeding in which parents were unfairly stripped of the rights to 4 children. Back in October, Cerro Gordo County Attorney Carlisle Dallin says he would refer Gray's case to another agency for investigation. Dallin at the time said he wanted to ensure that the potential criminal matter could be evaluated fairly and independently, since his office uncovered Gray's false statements and brought them to the court's attention. Bob Fisher, Radio Iowa, Mason City.
Iowa DOT officials are asking legislators to help ensure their dwindling stockpile of road salt is properly replenished. Lee Wilkinson is the top administrator for the Iowa DOT.
This was actually our most severe winter that I can recall. We have a winter severity index. On a winter severity standpoint, this has been the highest winter we've had, at least since early 2000s.
Wilkinson says the DOT needs $9 million extra to buy the salt, as the agency fell behind in buying salt last summer.
This winter was sort of a perfect storm, if you will, given the severity of the winter that we faced, plus the fact that we had to actually use a part of our normal salt budget to refill our salt sheds at the beginning of this year because of the previous winter that lasted through the end of April.
The proposal is included in a bill that has cleared the Senate and House committee and is eligible for debate in the full House. I'm Alex Benzagal with the KVFD Afternoon News. Have a great day.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Cloudy this afternoon with highs around 61. Northwest winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Overcast again tonight. Scattered rain showers likely. Lows around 40. Scattered rain showers likely. Tomorrow, high temperatures reach up to 42. Cloudy skies. A dusting of snow Thursday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 61.
What if I told you there was a way to step into another gear for your brain and be much sharper, more focused, and improve your memory to a level that you could only dream about, and notice these results in 30 minutes? Hard to believe? Neuroscientists are calling this new brain discovery the biggest advancement in brain science to date. It's called Limitless, the brain pill of the future. Take it, and within 30 minutes, you'll transport your mind to a new level of focus and clarity you would have never thought possible.
I took Limitless and it started working in minutes. All of a sudden, it felt like a dark cloud had been lifted up right before my eyes. I have a mental clarity I've never felt before.
Biz execs, athletes, teachers, and students are calling Limitless a secret weapon for the brain. You have nothing to lose, so call now and find out how to get a free bottle today.
To find out how to get your free bottle of Limitless, call 800-681-9041. That's 800-681-9041. Free bottle for a limited time. Call now, 800-681-9041, 800-681-9041.
If you're drowning in IRS tax debt, please get ready to take down this number to take advantage of the new IRS tax forgiveness programs. The IRS has recently hired private debt collection agencies to start collecting your outstanding taxes.
Prior to calling Superior Tax Relief, I owe the IRS $33,000, and my wages had just been garnished. Superior Tax Relief put a stop to the garnishment and was able to resolve my tax problem. I walked away owing close to nothing. I would highly recommend Superior Tax Relief. They saved my life.
We can protect you from the added fees and negotiate your tax liability. Superior Tax Relief can set you free from your tax issues. Call Superior Tax Relief to find out how you can qualify for the Fresh Start program that's now available. Don't hesitate. Call today. Call 800-711-5099. The consultation is free. The information is free. This call could save you thousands. Call 800-711-5099. 800-711-5099. That's 800-711-5099.
Connect to this radio station from all across the country. Tickets to the gym, shopping. How about a road trip? Listen to us now on the free iHeartRadio app. You'll never miss a moment with your favorite radio station. Download the free iHeartRadio app and search for this station so we can go wherever you want us to.
It's Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
All right, here we go. AM 1400, KVFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. We are going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we're never going to be boring. Some people are starting to ask me if I'm trying to start a religious radio station here in Fort Dodge at KVFT. I'm not really, but since this is, we're approaching Easter, I have invited once again Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church here. Pastor Hill, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
And with us, Father Patrick Boehm of the Holy Trinity Parish here in town. Now, the last time I had these two ministers of Christ in the room, I tried to start a religious war. I got nowhere. It was a big love fest. So I kind of expect that'll happen again today. So let's talk a little history here. Most people know the story. But what was happening in Jesus' life as we approached Easter?
A lot.
Oh, yeah. There was a lot.
Yes,
there was.
Lot. Well, let's start with this. A lot of the Gospels have what we would call a crucifixion focus or even a resurrection focus. And so if you look at like the Gospel of John, for example, almost half of the whole book talks about events that transpire just in the final week of Jesus's life. The same is true in the Gospel of Luke. So the Gospel of Luke is about 24 chapters long. And I believe it's at the end of chapter 9. It says, and Jesus set about resolutely toward Jerusalem.
That's right.
So
wow. We're already on the same page, Mike. Anyway, keep going. I love it.
I want pagan liberals to pay particular attention. See, there I am off task already. I'm off message already. Sorry about the pagan liberals. I know you're pagan liberals, but I apologize. Please go ready.
Well, so a whole lot of Jesus' ministry in the Gospels, like the focus in the Gospels, is of this last week, and so much so that even in the Gospel of John, there's some debate about this. But in chapter 2, Jesus in John's Gospel goes to Jerusalem and clears the temple. And that's something that he does in the very last week of his ministry. Some people they've debated maybe Jesus cleared out the temple twice, and we probably don't have time to solve that one today. But there's a lot of debate about that. But all that I think goes to show is that for the gospel writers, Holy Week, I mean, that's the defining moment of Jesus' ministry, and they all devote a significant amount of attention in the Gospels about it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, gosh, I don't even really know what to add to that. It's one of the reasons I love coming on here with Pastor Hill. I learned something. I get to steal all sorts of stuff from my next week's homily.
Exactly. The feeling's mutual. So.
All right. Just don't start talking about the Pope directed you to do anything over there, Pastor.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be in big problem. But tell us what happened when Jesus went to the Garden of Gethsemane. Gethsemane. Thank you.
Well,
go for it.
Well, there's a lot there. So that's on the night that Jesus was betrayed, as we say in that phrase, and so that's on what we would call Maundy Thursday. And this is something that you asked me yesterday that I'm going to see if Father Patrick knows. Why do we call it Maundy Thursday? That escaped
What's
me.
the Maundy thing?
You know, I've heard this before, but for the life of me, off the top of my head, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Google probably does.
Exactly.
But
Google knows.
But honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, because we call it the same thing. I don't know.
I didn't know yesterday when
we're
he
going to
asked
have
either.
to go with it here. You know, some mechanic is going to look this up here pretty quick and call us in.
Probably.
By the way, 515-955-1400 is going to tell you guys, hey, I know this and you don't. What's up?
That'd be great. I'd love to.
Right?
know.
Yeah, exactly.
We're coming up to it next Thursday.
The reality is, there's plenty of stuff I don't know.
There you go.
So you were saying about the garden. Go ahead.
Well, so on that Maundy Thursday, then that's the night that Jesus was betrayed, and the way that the chronology kind of transpires is that that Jesus has had his Last Supper with his disciples, and again, looking at the Gospel of John, that begins, I think, in John chapter 13. Where Jesus washes his disciples' feet.
That's Monday, by the way.
And so he washes his disciples' feet. And that's what Maundy is.
Yep, I actually just did look it up on my phone. So
so fill it in.
It comes from the Latin word mandatum, which means commandment, and that was our Lord's commandment to Peter. Well, actually, to all the apostles, he said, you know, as I do, so you must also do, and so as I have washed your feet, so you must wash one another's feet.
And love one another as I have loved you.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Well, so we answered our own question, kind of.
There you go.
We're going through here. Interesting. So from mandatum, you said.
Yes.
All right. Well, so then they have the Last Supper there, and what I find is striking, especially in recent years, is that even Judas received the elements that night. And
received the elements.
Well, okay, so received the body and blood that night. So in the Last Supper, Jesus says he takes a loaf of bread and he gives thanks and he says, "This is my body that is broken for you. Take and eat and do this in remembrance of me." And then as it goes on, after supper, Jesus takes the cup and he pours this cup of wine and says, "This is the cup of the new covenant, poured out in my blood for the forgiveness of sins. Do this in remembrance of me." And so we would call those the communion elements. Now, Father Patrick and I, we could have a discussion about transubstantiation and the.
Let's have that discussion right now.
Well, let's get to that. Let's finish.
Right, I would agree because we got to get to that point first. So go ahead.
Well, so let's just talk about, I think, the significance that we can agree upon there, and just starting, what I think is so interesting about that is that, so here Jesus is continuing to show his followers that he is willing to go to the ultimate end. And we see that in his washing of their feet. He says, "Love one another." And this is the beginning of this ending story that Jesus is willing to even give of his own life in order to restore this relationship with humanity. And recipients of that, though, what is so striking to me is that Judas, who has already betrayed Jesus at that time and knows it, also receives communion that night. So does Peter, who we know right after this is going to betray Christ or disown him 3 times. And for me, that's always helpful because I sometimes don't feel worthy to receive the elements when in a service. I sometimes think, who am I to receive the body and the blood, the bread and the cup, and yet even Judas received.
Why are you? I've been a member of the First Presbyterian Church, and we received communion.
Yeah.
But you're describing it as the elements today. Why is that?
Well,
To you, it's the same thing, or what?
Yeah, I'd be curious. I mean, the elements. It's just one way of talking about both the bread and the cup.
Sure. Yeah, and I'd use the same terminology.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could say receiving communion, taking communion.
Right.
So are we going to go with trans?
Well, yeah.
Well, we can get. Let me just kind of go off on what he's saying here. A couple of things strike me. So I'm actually reading a book right now to kind of get myself prepared for Holy Week, and one of the things that this book pointed out is something that I never realized. But one of the things that our Lord Jesus says is in the garden, in the Garden of Gethsemane. First of all, it means field of the olive press, and so it's associated with something having to do with an olive press. Not that is either here or there. It's just an interesting little factoid. But Jesus says in the garden, my heart is sorrowful even unto death. Stay here and keep watch with me. And he says that to Peter, James, and John. Well, what I did not realize, and maybe you knew this, but I certainly didn't, is that is an allusion to the book of Sirach, where it symbolizes the heart of someone who has been wounded because he has been betrayed by a close friend.
Wow.
And so in the midst of the agony that Jesus is going through, and even in anticipation, because, for instance, Luke, in Luke's gospel, he tells us that our Lord's sweat became like drops of blood. And so doctors have been able to tell us that that's a real condition that people at that time knew about. And Luke, we believe, was a physician. The tradition tells us he was a physician and would have had knowledge of this. And so what I understand with my very limited medical knowledge is that that's a condition that happens when you are under such immense amount of stress that your blood vessels actually burst and blood gets into your sweat glands. And so our Lord was under this immense amount of stress, immense amount of agony, really. I mean, and that's exactly what it was an agony in anticipation of the immense amount of just physical suffering that he was about to undergo. And in the midst of all that, what does he say? What does he allude to? He alludes to this line that, to a kind of an obscure listener, but certainly to a Jewish listener would have been aware of saying, look, my heart is sorrowful because I have been betrayed by my friend. And I look at my own life. And so if any of my parishioners are listening, this is a preview of your Good Friday homily.
It's a teaser.
I look at my own life. That's right. And I realize that I am Judas. How many times have I betrayed my Lord? How many times have I not been faithful to the Lord's commandments, whatever it may be? This Thursday, one of my favorite days of the year, actually. I don't know if you have anything comparable in your faith, but in our tradition, usually about a week before Holy Thursday, roughly, give or take a few days, we celebrate what is called the Chrism Mass, where all of the priests of our diocese will gather with our bishop and some members of the lay community, and we as priests will renew our priestly vows, and we will promise once again to be faithful to our Lord. And it always offers me an opportunity to go back over my last year and look at all the times where I have been unfaithful to my Lord, and look at all the times where literally I have been Judas. And to say, okay, here's where I need to repent and need to convert. Okay, I got off on a tangent. I just bumped my microphone.
No, that's okay. I'm a little surprised that you would take ownership of Judas. Judas is reviled in Christian history.
Absolutely. But the thing is,
you're not going to go hang yourself in the parking lot.
Oh heavens, no. But the reality is that as soon as we start to think that we have quote unquote made it, and we start to think, I have achieved holiness, I have achieved sanctity, I am where the Lord wants me to be. Well, I hate to break it to you, you have just fallen into pride, right? You've just fallen into the trap of pride.
You just can't win with you guys.
Yeah. Well, it's just, but I mean, seriously, like the greatest saints, the greatest examples of holiness, and I suspect you probably have some in the Presbyterian community. I know from our tradition, like St. Francis of Assisi. St. Francis of Assisi, who was this just saintly man, said he's the greatest sinner. Well, why is that? Well, because he's not comparing himself to everybody else like I do. He's comparing himself to the Master, to the Lord. And he's saying, when I look at my Master, at my Lord, at Jesus Christ, as a disciple, I fall short. And he said, arguably one of the greatest saints that's ever lived said, I am the greatest sinner. And so, yeah, I mean, if I am honest, Mike, if I am honest, the only character in the story that I can relate to is Judas, because I have betrayed our Lord many, many times over. And I'm not saying this to brag, but it's just the reality. Maybe Barabbas. Okay. I mean, I can also relate to Barabbas, which, by the way, Bar Abba, mean the son of the Father. And so interestingly enough, that Jesus Christ, the true son of the Father, frees Barabbas, the son of the Father, you, me, Pastor Hill, all of us, by taking on a debt of sin that he did not owe, because we, as one commentator puts it, we owed a debt that we could not pay. And I suspect you probably have heard that. At any rate, let's back up, because I got us off on a tangent. We were just about to talk about something interesting, but I see maybe you wanted to make a point.
Well,
there.
You talked about achieving holiness.
Yes.
I'd like you two guys to define holiness for me.
Well, I would say it this way. I would say, and maybe achieving isn't the right way to put that, because that begins to sound Pelagian, and as Catholics, we're oftentimes accused of Pelagianism, the idea that we can earn our way to heaven.
That's right.
And that's just not accurate. We don't believe in that. At any rate, that moving beyond that, I would say that holiness is discipleship. Holiness is following the path of the Lord. And that's I think that's what Jesus commanded us. The very last thing that he said before his ascension, go therefore and make disciples of all nations. That was his commandment to the apostles. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. Well, what's a disciple? A disciple is someone who follows and imitates the Lord Jesus, not somebody that is quote unquote a good person, right? Because whose definition are we following? Because we all have different definitions of a quote good person. A disciple is one that looks at the Master, at Jesus Christ, and says, here's my model and my guide. I think we're really good at that, for instance, like with sports figures, right? How many kids growing up looked at Michael Jordan? Gatorade had a commercial, right? I want to be like Mike. How many little kids grew up with their tongue out of their mouth because Michael Jordan did it that way?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Well, holiness is the same thing. We want to be like the Master. If Michael Jordan is the master at the game of basketball, Jesus Christ is the master at being human. And so if I want to be the very best version of myself, you might say, I want to be like Christ. That's what I would say. You feel free to offer a different take.
Well, certainly, I mean, Jesus is the one who knew no sin,
right,
and became sin on our behalf. And this gets into what we would call our doctrine of justification, and then also sanctification. And also, just at its simplest, to be holy is to be set apart. And God commands the Israelites first in the Old Testament through like the book of Leviticus. He says, be holy as the Lord is holy. So be a nation set apart, a people set apart. And what we see throughout Scripture, even going back to that Great Commission imagery, is that God's people are set apart for a purpose. They are set apart for that Great Commission, set apart to be the church and to bring about the kingdom of God more fully here on earth, and to be a witness, a sign and a foretaste. There's a passage in the New Testament, I believe it's 1 Peter 2:9, that says, you are a holy nation, a royal priesthood. Or maybe I switch those words around. But.
Yeah, it's you are a royal priesthood, a holy nation of people set apart. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So we are set apart for a purpose. And so the way we are made right is through what Jesus has accomplished for us on the cross. That's why Good Friday, also a part of Holy Week, where Jesus is killed, that's why it's good, because he took on that debt that we could not pay, to use that language
Amen.
Earlier. and he conquered sin and evil. He conquered death. And then with Easter, we learn that death has lost its sting. It has lost its victory, as the Apostle Paul says. And to go back to that earlier point of connecting ourselves to Judas, even Paul, this man who wrote so much of the New Testament, calls himself chief sinner among men.
Right.
And so we have that lineage there. And not that we glory in our sins and try to like one up each other and how sinful we are.
Right.
I don't know. I think you got a contest going over there.
But I think if every one of us is honest, the more we learn about ourselves, the more we recognize that we are in need of God's grace.
I'm going to pick on Father Bain just a minute.
Oh, good.
You talked about identifying as Barabbas, and you betrayed your Lord, and I've heard those things over the years, and I've heard and with Catholics when I went to the Catholic Church, it sounded sometimes like we could never get the burden of sin off us. And what we were being taught in the Catholic Church were reasons that we had to come to the Catholic Church, because there's no salvation without the Church. If we're really, truly screwed in our everyday life, if we're really, truly Barabbas, we can never get out of church.
Okay.
Do you understand my question?
Well, I think so. I think there's actually
do we need the church for salvation, or do we need Christ for our salvation?
I would say it's both.
Okay.
And let me explain that. So I think there's a conflation of two different issues going on here.
Okay.
Independent of anything that I may say about Barabbas or Judas, I think that's kind of immaterial to this overall discussion. What you're asking is, do we, like you said, do we need the church? And so you referenced...
do we need the church for salvation?
Sure. You referenced a doctrine that has been professed by the Catholic Church through 2,000 years.
Yes.
Outside of the church, there is no salvation. In Latin, extra ecclesiam nulla salus. And so here's the way I would say that. And I think I've mentioned this on your show before, but it always bears repeating. And by all means, Pastor, if you want to jump in, we could have a discussion on this, I suppose. What I would say is this, that Jesus Christ came to earth. Well, let me rephrase that. The second person of the Trinity took on flesh in the womb of the Virgin Mary, was born among us as Jesus Christ, and as Jesus Christ, insofar as he was God and the Word incarnate. Okay, the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, as John tells us in, I think, John 1:14, maybe. Mm-hmm. He took on the burden of sin and destroyed it and was victorious over it. But he also, I would argue, built a church and established a church. We see this, for instance, in Matthew's gospel. And one of the verses I usually quote, Matthew 16:18, he says, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the netherworld shall not prevail against it." The letter to the Ephesians, it talks about the church quite a bit, actually, particularly the church as the bride of Christ. And so there's this visible church which Christ gives us as, I would say, the ark. And so to draw a parallel to Noah's ark, okay, the church is the ark through which we are kind of brought through the waters, if you will, the waters of life, the turmoil of life. And so there's a reason that we call the church the body of Christ, the church as the bride of Christ. There's a lot of allegory that we use there. But the point is this, that if someone goes to heaven at the end of his or her life, whether that person is a baptized Christian, whether that person is an avowed atheist, whether that person lives in the jungles of Africa and has never heard the gospel preached before, whatever it may be, if that person goes to heaven at the end of his or her life, that person does so by Christ, who won redemption and salvation on the cross, and through the church, which is the mediator of his grace.
I'm going to tell you what was behind that question that I just asked.
Oh, go ahead.
Or tried to ask.
Yeah, sure.
I sat in a Protestant church with some very good Christian people, not the Presbyterian church, a Protestant church in another town.
Okay.
And the minister, the pastor, I should say, of that particular church, really a nice guy and really a man of God. He directly confronted the Catholic Church as a group that tries to scare the life out of their congregants to keep a hold on their people through fear.
Okay.
And I've thought of that, and I thought about my own religious training in the Catholic Church, and certainly some of the old priests and nuns. That's exactly what they did.
Sure,
that's exactly what they did. So that's a feeling that Protestants have sometimes. Yes, I'm really trying to get you guys to fight here.
Well, I mean, I'll say now. I will also say though, growing up as an evangelical Protestant, I was instilled with a heck of a lot of fear as well. I remember watching movies. They were called the Image of the Beast. All these movies about the end times, and they terrified me as a child. Showing these gratuitous videos of people being beheaded. I mean, it's fictional, but being beheaded for not receiving the mark of the beast in the end times. And this is, our church library, and like 7-year-old me and my older brothers were like, hey, there's a guillotine on that church video. Let's check that out. And we go home and watch it. And then I'm like, oh my goodness. And so for years, I was afraid that if my mom went to the grocery store and came home 20 minutes later than she said, oh my goodness, she's been raptured and I've been left behind.
Right.
So it's not just a Catholic
no,
thing.
and I mean,
she's been raptured.
Yeah.
You make a good point, Mike, and I think this is a trap that we can fall into. I suspect it's probably a trap that I have fallen into at times, that we can so overemphasize the fear of hell that we underemphasize the reality of God's victory and his mercy. And so I think it's 365 times, one time for every day out of the year. I think I've read that our Lord or someone in the gospel, not the gospel, but all of the Bible says, do not be afraid or be not afraid. And so certainly we never want to be fearful, right? Fear does not come from Christ. It comes from the enemy. It comes from the evil one. And so fear is never something good. But in the same vein, in the same breath, we also don't want to be presumptuous. Presumption is the idea that, hey, I'm okay because I'm a good guy. Well, according to whom? I mean, what is, we can all say, well, I'm a good guy. Don't we hear that about every person that shoots up a school? He was a good kid. What happened? Well, something did. Okay. And so being a quote unquote good person, that's just not anything Jesus said. I mean, hashtag things Jesus never said. And so
being an evolved and tolerant person wasn't the goal.
Well, and so what I would say is this: while we don't want to be fearful, we also don't want to be presumptuous. And I will confess, I will freely admit that I think you are probably right. And I think this minister that you heard is probably right. We have had maybe an overemphasis in the history of Catholicism on the fearful, don't be presumptuous side, and an underemphasis on the reality of God's mercy. There's a beautiful devotion that is coming to us really very recently called the Devotion to the Divine Mercy. And that's precisely the point, that we worship a merciful Savior who desires to heal.
See, what we really need is David Grinberg in here, Pastor Grinberg over at St. Olaf Lutheran. He'd be loving up a storm in here again.
I love that guy.
I love that guy too. We're gonna have to take a break. Our guests are Father Patrick Boehm and the Reverend Dr. Austin Hill, and we'll be back.
This is Chris Heslop with Star Energy FS. I understand that time is a precious commodity, especially when it comes to your operation. That's why I am dedicated to be the best at providing business solutions for your operation. FS proudly supports the local communities we serve, is committed to helping your operation continue to run smoothly so that you can spend more time with those you care the most about. Star Energy FS is your local, reliable supplier for fuel, lubricant, and propane needs. FS, the people and the products to take you further.
Hi, I'm Jamie Brundage, owner of Historic Bruce Funeral Home. When you're planning the memorialization of your loved one, you're telling their story and sharing special memories with your family and friends. At Historic Bruce Funeral Home, we're proud to help you celebrate the life of your loved one, and we're here to guide you with your selections as we help you and your family say goodbye in a way that's right for you. Our staff is committed to compassionate care and attention to detail. Historic Bruce Funeral Home, Fort Dodge. Online at brucesfuneralhome.com.
Active Health Chiropractic is having a bump day, and all expectant moms, new moms, and their supporters are invited. Be at Active Health Chiropractic Thursday, April 11th from 6 till 8. Come discover essential products for parents, newborns, and young children. Get advice from parenting experts. Come enjoy snacks, get a free henna tattoo, and register to win some great door prizes, which includes a grand prize of an infant photography package. No purchase necessary. Don't miss bump day, April 11th at Active Health Chiropractic, 20 North 29th Street, Fort Dodge.
Here's a look at how the markets closed on Tuesday. I'm Jesse Stewart reporting. USDA expecting larger corn stocks while they trimmed the soybean stocks on Tuesday in the April round of USDA reports. Final numbers, soybeans for May unchanged at 8.98 3/4. July beans unchanged at 9.11 3/4. November beans down a half penny at 9.31 3/4 on Tuesday. May bean meal down 10 cents a ton at 309.10. May bean oil 16 points higher at 29.04. May corn and July corn both unchanged, with May at 360, July corn at 368 and a half, December corn up a quarter penny at 389 and a quarter. May Chicago wheat down 5 3/4 at 459 and a half. May Kansas City winter wheat down 4 at 427 and a half. May Minneapolis spring wheat down 1 at 523. Meantime, feeder cattle trade April down 57 at 146.15. May down 40 at 150.17, and August down 10 at 157.60. Live cattle for April up 10 at 125.90. June down 22 at 120.35. August down 7 at 117.65. Hog trade April down 7 at 78.52. The rest limit lower. May at 86.45. June at 95.15. And July hogs at 97.97. That's closing markets. I'm Jesse Stewart reporting.
This is AM 1400 KVFT, the voice for Fort Dodge. 441. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Bruce's Funeral Home, the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South here in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Mary Kay Drown, 91 years old of Fort Dodge. Renee's grandma has passed away. Renee Drown works here, of course. Mary Kay Drown, 91 of Fort Dodge, died on Monday at Friendship Haven. There will be a private family graveside service held at Memorial Park Cemetery for Mary Kay Drown. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce's Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South here in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce's Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Let's take a look at the weather here. Not the type of spring weather forecast I want to hear, but here it is anyway. Some rain overnight with a low of 39. It's going to be windy, of course. Tomorrow, rain, high only 42, a good 20 degrees lower than the average temperature for this time of year. We'll have wind gusts up to 35 to maybe 40 miles per hour. On Thursday, some rain is likely, probably a thunderstorm. Cloudy with a high of 50. On Friday, chance of rain and snow showers. Be very windy that day with a high only of 41. Saturday, sunny with a high of 47. Sunday, mostly sunny with a high of 48. And Monday, mostly sunny with a high of 55. So enjoy the 61 degrees that it is now. Things are about to change. Father Patrick Boehm of the Holy Trinity Parish and Reverend Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church are here, and we're talking Holy Week and a lot of other things. And we'll be back with both of these fine men of Christ in just a moment.
From the Fox Business Network. Well, bank on making more money if you work for this bank. Bank of America says it will raise its minimum wage for employees to $17 an hour next month, and then up to $20 an hour in the next 2 years. Well, kids banking on getting a summer job when school ends might be in luck, as the firm Challenger Gray and Christmas is predicting there will be around 5% more job opportunities for teenagers this year compared to last year. Stocks getting hammered on Wall Street Tuesday. The Dow, S&P 500, and the NASDAQ all closing lower. Investors in a selling mood mainly because of worries about growth and trade. And quite an honor for the capital of Texas. U.S. News and World Report naming Austin as the best place to live in America. Their study looked at things like the job market, the affordability of housing, and the quality of life. With the Fox Business Report, I'm Connell McShane.
And now, the worst commercial ever.
Hi, I am Justin Galvin, retired athlete from your local ball team, so I know a thing or two about insuring a landscaping business. I trust the pros, commercial auto and business insurance through Progressive. Get customized insurance solutions that'll hit a grand slam home run for you. We done?
A totally mailed-in celebrity endorsement. Awful. Whereas commercial auto and business insurance through Progressive is anything but. Visit ProgressiveCommercial.com to quote today. Insurance provided and serviced by Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. It's affiliated and third-party insurers.
Ooh, I love that house.
Yeah, but look whose sign is in the yard. That's not who we're working with.
We don't have to work with them just because they have it listed. Our agent at Neighborhood Realty can show us the house.
They can?
Well, sure, they can show us any house we like, no matter whose sign is in the yard.
Well, then let's call Neighborhood Realty for a tour.
Hi, I'm Heather Reck with Neighborhood Realty. Stop in or check us out online today at neighborhood-realty.net. Neighborhood Realty, devoted to your real estate needs.
To keep your vehicle running at its best, keep up with routine maintenance. The certified service techs at Humboldt Motor Sales make maintaining your vehicle easy. They offer convenient hours and competitive prices on all service and parts. And they take care of your GM warranty needs too. From oil changes to tires, brakes to batteries, engine repair and transmission repair, Humboldt Motor Sales can handle it all. Have your vehicle serviced soon at Humboldt Motor Sales. Log on to HumboldtGM.com to schedule an appointment now or call 800-566-8670.
Doing some deep cleaning in your home or business? Don't throw your gently used stuff out. Take it to the general store, where every donation is tax deductible. When it's time to clean out your dressers, closets, attics, basements, and storerooms, just load it up and come to the general store. Their friendly staff will help unload everything with you. Remember, when you donate your gently used furniture, clothing, small appliances, and more to the general store, you're helping people with special needs in our community. The General Store, 12 North 25th, Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
Well, we're talking about Holy Week a little bit, kind of in a roundabout way, with two very fine men of Christ.
Where are they at?
Well, we have Barabbas over here, and on the other side of Jesus, the Reverend Austin Hill. No, we have Father Patrick Boehm over here. This very possibly could be the best that this radio show ever gets, by the way. But I do want to get right to the point as far as transubstantiation is. Do you want to take this with Father Hill?
Well, why don't we let
the Catholic priest do it?
All right.
Yeah, why don't we start there?
Sure. So one of the key differences between our faith traditions, I guess you might say, is a belief in, if not what happened at the Last Supper, then certainly how that comes to us today, perhaps. And so in the Catholic Church, we believe that when Jesus said, "This is my body, which will be given up for you," he meant it, that it really was his body, that it wasn't just symbolic. And so as Catholics, we worship in the fullest sense of the word worship, the Eucharist. And so I believe with all of my heart that Jesus Christ is physically present. Physically, as physical as I am right now here in your studio, he is physically present in every church with a tabernacle in it. And so what is transubstantiation? What does that word mean? Where does that come from? So trans means change, okay? And substance is just that, what it is. So what it is changes. And so every time I have Mass, I believe, and the Catholic Church teaches, that I start with bread and wine, but I do not end with bread and wine. I have at the end of that the body and the blood of Jesus Christ. And so where does this teaching come from? Well, like I said, it comes from the three accounts in the Gospels of the Last Supper. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all three record these words as what Jesus said. Take this, all of you, and eat of it. This is my body, which will be given up for you. And then again, and likewise the cup, take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is the chalice of my blood, the blood of the new and the everlasting covenant, which will be given up for you. We also see this in John chapter 6, certainly the latter half, what we call the bread of life discourse. Something like 15 times, Jesus says over and over again, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life within you. My flesh is true food, my blood is true drink. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I remain in him and he remains in me. Over and over and over again, Jesus says this. Interestingly enough, we hear at the very beginning of John chapter 6 that it's the Feast of Passover. The Last Supper, where Jesus institutes the Eucharist, is a Passover meal. Finally, we also see evidence for this in Paul's letter to the Corinthians, first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 11, where he refers to, he says, is not the cup that we share a sharing in the body of the Lord? And so as Catholics, we understand that this is not merely symbolic, that it's not just bread and wine, that it really does become his body and blood in the same way as Jesus in John chapter 2 really turned water into wine. He really changes wine into his blood and bread into his body, and offers that to us as food to nourish us for the journey, food for the journey. And it's really, I mean, it's the fulfillment of so many Old Testament scriptures. I could be here until next week trying to describe these. I'll just give you one. When Adam and Eve fell at the fall, they are barred from eating the fruit of the tree of life. And so they, because they ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they were barred from eating the fruit of the tree of life. And so one of the parallels is that Jesus, the new Adam, by dying on the tree of life, gives us the fruit of the tree of life, which is his body and blood, to feed us until one day we arrive at our heavenly homeland and are with him, and he is united to us, where we no longer need Holy Communion because we are in union with him.
Pastor Hill?
There's a lot there. Sorry.
There is a lot there. And I guess I would first ask, I think one of the key differences between a Presbyterian and a Catholic is what I would call our sacramentology, so our theology of the sacraments.
Mm-hmm.
And as a Presbyterian, we believe in two sacraments, and that would be baptism and communion. And I view this sort of as like being on a spectrum or a continuum. And on one side, you would have the Catholic Church, where there are 7 sacraments. And on the other side, and maybe like a non-denominational church, there would be no sacraments at all.
Right. And
they would maybe be called an ordinance or just something you do.
Right. Right.
And Presbyterians are kind of in the middle in that we have 2 sacraments. And what I would say that Father Patrick would probably agree with is that a sacrament is a means of grace. And a sacrament is about what God is doing in us on our behalf for us. It's not about what we do necessarily or what we offer. The efficacy of that sacrament is based on what God is doing and not on our own abilities or what we bring as well. One of the differences about our sacraments then is that we believe sacraments are what we would call dominically instituted, so they're commanded by Jesus. And so we would look at baptism and communion as things that are commanded by Christ. Like in the Great Commission in Matthew 28, we are called to go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then we are to do this in remembrance of Jesus. We are to do what Jesus has commanded us. But then the other sacraments within the Catholic Church, that's where we would part ways, in that, like, take marriage, for example, we are not commanded to marry, or ordination, we are not commanded to be ordained. And that's where I guess I would ask a follow-up question is, how do those other 5 sacraments, are they kind of on the same level, so to speak, as the other 2, or are there distinctions within the Catholic Church?
I want Father Boehm to answer that, but I feel in the very few minutes we have remaining, I have to be fair to Father Boehm. I asked him kind of a tough question about his faith. So I will tell you, in the Presbyterian Church and some of the Presbyterian and especially Protestant people, they've had very negative things to say about Catholicism, very strong negative things. It's a pagan ritual, that sort of thing. They're all slaves to the Pope and zombies and that sort of thing. And I worked a couple of years in the Carolinas down south in radio. I'll tell you, not a lot of Catholics there. And some of the Baptists, and I shouldn't even said Baptists, but they were Baptist ministers, would talk to, and I'd hear them say things like, well, the Pope really is the Antichrist and the Catholics are in league with the devil. And I thought, whoa,
yeah,
wow. What I'm getting at is there is, especially in some of the older members of the Protestant churches, and frankly, the older members of the Catholic Church, there's a very strong feeling of anti-Catholicism.
Sure.
Have you encountered that since you've been here? You're a younger man.
Yeah. Well, not nearly to the degree. I do know in older generations, like take my parents' generation, for example.
Easy now. They're younger than I am.
Yeah. Well, older than I am generations.
There you go. Right.
I think there are a lot more of those distinctions in the, they're a Catholic. They're not even Christian.
That's right.
I hear that.
Oh, yeah.
From time to time. Now, I think part of this is that Catholics and Protestants, if we look back, it's not that long ago that Catholics and Protestants were literally killing each other.
That's right.
Over those differences of belief.
That's exactly right.
And so that kind of stuff stays with people and people groups for a long time. I think, as I've said before, I think as Christendom continues to sort of die in the West, and what I mean by that is as kind of the established, organized cultural force of Christianity loses its significance in the West, so in Europe and North America, I think Christians can't afford to hold on to those divisions that they once were able to.
Oh boy, there were some good ones. One of the real memories of my youth, I think I told Father Bain this, is when I was about 7, 8 years old, I was just a kid. I was kicked out of the neighbor's yard because I was a Catholic. Yeah. I was told to leave and never come back because I was a Catholic. We don't allow Catholics here.
And that is baffling to me. Like I cannot imagine a social setting where that would happen.
Yeah, no, I can't either. And I certainly have never experienced that by any means.
Oh, you younger guys. But I had to throw that in there again because I asked Father Bain a pretty tough one.
Well, that's all right.
But please respond to...
Okay. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left.
That's
but
right.
I just want to make sure I understand your question correctly. You were saying because baptism and the Eucharist, there's a commandment associated with them. They seem to be set aside than the other 5.
That's one of the reasons that as a Presbyterian, we would have 2 as opposed to 5. One other distinction would be that in baptism and communion, there's the symbolism behind the physical action that happens.
Sure.
You are actually washed, you are actually eating. So that's a distinction.
Yeah. And so I would say in the other 5 sacraments that we uphold as instituted by Christ in the Catholic Church, I would argue that there is a physical reality as well. So for instance, in holy orders, when I was ordained a priest, the bishop really laid hands on me. And we see evidence of this, for instance, in Paul's letter to Timothy, where he says, where I laid hands on you.
Yeah.
And so we see this kind of apostolic succession. When I go to the hospital and I anoint someone who's sick, I lay hands on them. I pray for them. I pray over them. I really anoint them with real oil. Okay. And reminiscent, for instance, of James chapter 5, where James talks about this. And so I would argue that they're all found in Scripture. I would agree with you that baptism and communion and the Eucharist, baptism and communion, they do have a commandment associated with them. I think the key distinction for us as Catholics isn't so much whether there is a commandment, but is it instituted by Christ? And my argument would be that we can find evidence for all 7 sacraments as being instituted by Christ. I mentioned a couple of them, the anointing of the sick and holy orders, but and we've already talked about the Eucharist and baptism. Certainly marriage is throughout the New Testament. Jesus talks about matrimony, the confession of sins. I would reference John chapter 20, verses 19 to 23, where Jesus breathes on the apostles and he says, whose sins you forgive are forgiven, whose sins you retain are retained. Confirmation, particularly in Acts 2, the Feast of Pentecost, but then throughout Acts of the Apostles, where there's a continuous invoking of the Holy Spirit, a calling of the Holy Spirit down upon us, in something that's not supposed to end, that we experience and live right here and now. I see Mike holding this finger up, saying
we're getting
out of time.
We're getting to the end here. We don't even. I don't have any time for a response to that, but and I know you fellows will be very, very busy.
Well, I don't think this will be the last time we'll be on together. I hope not.
If there's another day that you can both be on for this amount of time between now and Easter itself, as we discuss the progress of the history of our faith as it moves to Easter, that would be terrific. If you guys could give me a time and you could both work out, I would certainly appreciate it. This is AM 1400 KVFT, the voice of Fort Dodge.
First State Bank, first for you.
First State Bank and its ag lenders are first for you. They have the desire to work with you and the authority to make their decisions locally. They strive to be your #1 financial institution leader. Stop in or give Jennifer Hansen, Rob Dickey, or Josh Kibbe in Humboldt a call to see how they can help you grow. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
First State Bank, first for you.
Flood victims in Nebraska need our help. Alpha Media Fort Dodge is a designated donation site for the thousands of displaced people in Nebraska. Items needed are cleaning supplies, toiletries, diapers and baby wipes, new pillows and blankets, heavy-duty trash bags, snacks, bottled water, pet food, hygiene items, and of course, cash. If you can help our neighbors in Nebraska, please drop off your donations at our studios, 200 North 10th Street. All items will be delivered to Nebraska on Friday, April 26th. Special shout out to Chemna Auto of Fort Dodge for all the help. Thank you from all of us at Alpha Media.
For exciting Panther sports, keep it right here on your home for University of Northern Iowa sports in North Central Iowa. The voice.
We'll see it soon. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. The Attorney General getting more specific on when members of Congress can expect a version of the Mueller report. Fox's Jared Halpern live on Capitol Hill.
The Justice Department will release the Mueller report with redactions within a week, Attorney General William Barr says.
We will provide explanatory notes describing the basis for each redaction.
The redactions will be made for national security, ongoing prosecutions, and personal privacy, but could be released to Judiciary Committee leaders.
Thus far, I don't think Barr has conducted himself in a manner that earns people's trust.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says he's dubious Barr will be fair in what is released. Lisa.
Jared, new charges filed against an actress, her husband, and other wealthy parents in the massive college cheating scandal. Fox's Gernal Scott has this live.
Lisa, Boston grand jury has handed up a new charge of money laundering against actress Lori Loughlin, her husband, designer Massimo Giannulli, as well as 14 other parents. They're all accused of paying off college coaches or other officials to get their kids into their chosen schools. As they seek to avoid jail, the legal sides are at odds. Defense attorneys accuse prosecutors of shopping for a tough judge by linking the parents to an existing indictment. Prosecutors answer back saying the action's not unusual and call the defense complaint inappropriate and a desperate attempt to change the focus, Lisa.
Gernal, the elections in Israel too close to call, with both current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and rival Benny Gantz both declaring victory and both vowing to call on allies to help them form a government coalition. Wall Street at the close, stocks are closing higher, breaking an breaking an 8-day winning streak for the S&P. The Dow lost 190, the Nasdaq fell 44. This is Fox News.
There's nothing small about your business. Your passion, your hours, your reputation, it's all huge. Your partnerships, even bigger. With Dell Small Business Technology Advisors, you'll get the tech, advice, and one-on-one partnership to help your business grow. Because with reliable Dell PCs with Intel Core processors, you can focus on what matters most, getting business done. Call 877-BUY-DELL to speak with an advisor today. That's 877-BUY-DELL.